And welcome back.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome. It is
This is
finally
my
time.
long-awaited. I hope you guys are ready for 2.5 hours of Sanji defense and Sanji coping.
This has been a wonderful section that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I was really looking forward to this after finishing Zoe. I spent like all of the week I read Zoe waiting to read this, and then read all of it in half a week, and we're doing this one a little earlier than we usually do. So that's sort of how excited the
Just,
whole collective
just
here is
kind
to
of,
discuss
just
Whole
kind of
Cake.
worked out. We were able to get this done, and honestly, I think you would have been out of your mind
Oh yeah,
if you
considering
if it is currently a Wednesday. If you had to wait till Saturday to discuss and then you could read the rest of Whole Cake, you would have gone crazy.
I definitely would have gone crazy. I have gone mad a little bit in the hour since we finished
Yeah,
reading it.
it has been an hour.
So so I may not have as much in-depth stuff as I usually talk about with these middle sections of these parts
Mhm.
of the story. But that's okay because we've got, Misfits here to talk about Sanji for like 30 minutes. So
It's 30 minutes. Come on.
I was, I
Don't.
was lowballing, all right? I was lowballing. I was trying to give you a softball estimate in case you need to stall for time or something.
No,
Um,
I have many many thoughts about Sanji.
So I think we'll, sort of do our usual move, sort of just sort of through the normal order of the arc, and things that we think are worth talking about, we'll talk about.
Yep.
I think the first thing
What
that sort of
what chapter are we starting on, by the way, in case
we
anyone
are
wants to pull it up
starting
and read it
for
along?
anybody that is reading along, we are starting on chapter 825, which is comic strip,
Yep.
and ending
So we
on
were.
chapter 862, I believe.
Yep. So we're just gonna be moving through it. If you guys want to pull something up and
And
try to look at what we're
try and
looking
work
at.
out what we're looking at. Go right ahead. If not, now you know where this one started in case you are watching this before reading Whole Cake.
Yeah.
Which go read Whole Cake instead of watching this.
Yeah.
After you leave a like, anyway.
And
So
comment.
and comment.
Comment
No,
comment if
plugging
you're leaving.
plugging happens later. Yeah, comment if you're leaving the video to go read Whole Cake, and then come back
Yeah.
and comment that you finished Whole Cake. All right. Um,
All right.
so we sort of move in, and I think the first sort of thing to immediately get into is the appearance and the mentions of Germa 66.
Yeah. I mean, there is a little bit of like the reinforcement that
That like this
that
crew is
Luffy
hopeless without Sanji, especially
without
Luffy.
Sanji, especially Luffy. But yes, Germa 66. They pull up on their fucking big ass
They're big
snails.
as snails,
They're a country without land, and their land is snail.
and their land is snail with building on top of it.
Yes.
Uh,
These weird evil Power Ranger people.
the weird evil Power Ranger people who have a bunch of
Evil.
Nazi symbolism for some reason. It's a little
It,
strange.
it's a little strange. We're
Um,
still trying to figure out why.
Still trying to figure out why. I may get into a bit of what I'm thinking about that as we get a little bit further into this section.
Hmm.
But this initial introduction is like these guys are super evil, is sort of what we're told initially.
Yeah, I mean, they're called like the Nation of Evil or
The Nation of
something.
Evil, or like the Evil Kings, or something. And there's
The
like a
the
there's
the
a
yeah,
storybook tale, like a fake story that is told
it's
to
a
like scare
comic strip.
children, like a comic strip to scare children about the existence of Germa 66. So they're believed to be sort of a myth, and they have
Hmm.
some sort of connection to Sanji, which
Some sorta.
we get much more detail on. I think so far Germa 66 is really interesting. I'm obviously missing a piece of the puzzle as I haven't read the second half of Whole Cake yet.
Right.
But I'm
Um.
interested. I'm really interested to see how they fit into the bigger picture of this story.
Hmm.
Um, because they seem, I don't know, they're almost sort of out of place in the sense
Yeah.
that like we're at the point where we are fighting people who are either A, trying to be king of the pirates, or B, destroy the world.
Hmm.
And
And these guys
like
they just want to rule the North
they
Blue.
want to rule the North Blue. And I don't know what the hierarchy is of the seas. I know the East Blue is generally considered the weakest. I don't know what the other ones are considered.
Yeah.
But that seems like, compared to, say, Big Mom, who wants to defeat Kaido and Shanks and Blackbeard and rule the Grand Line,
Hmm.
a little small time. And
It
despite the
feels
fact
like
that
it.
they're seemingly sort of small time, they have this really imposing presence that sort of what is the word I'm looking for? Like contradicts their seeming goals and plans.
Yeah, and especially in an arc like this, they like you said, like they feel very out of place.
Yeah,
This
visually
like
too, of this like weird
exactly,
like
yeah, yeah,
ultra military force in the middle of Candyland.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is sort of
The
odd.
first one of what we later find out are Sanji siblings we meet
Things,
is
Yonji.
Yonji Vinsmoke, Winch Green. His power is Winch.
Is that what his power is? I don't know. I feel nothing about this guy, to be honest with you, so far.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the siblings on their own aren't the most interesting. I think as a collective, you get more into it.
yeah. I mean, I
Um,
think Reiju is interesting, and she shows up in a
yeah, yeah,
minute.
yeah. Yeah. I meant specifically like
The
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 quintuplets
brothers.
or the
Yeah, the brothers.
quadruplets.
Well, they're no, they're yeah, quadruplets because there's
Yeah.
four of them. I don't
Um.
know. The biggest takeaway for me for Yonji, and this is one of my least favorite things in this arc, genuinely. I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
interesting stuff that we learn about Sanji in this arc, but learning that the heart eyes joke thing that Oda likes doing is like a thing
Mhm.
that all of the brothers do is I think annoying.
I think it's just
Or just
Yonji.
Yonji, but like there's another brother that does it because I like the idea, and this is sort of getting ahead of myself, that we get like Sanji's code comes from Zeph.
Mhm.
But then the one thing that I hate the most about Sanji's character is just like a gag that is, I guess, tied to his biological family, which I think is sort of
Mhm.
frustrating. And maybe is an intentional play from Oda to be like
Mhm.
Sanji's greatest flaws is tied to this family.
Right.
But I don't know.
Um.
I
I th-
don't particularly
I do
care
think
for it.
it's a little bit interesting that we only see Yonji do this bit.
And only to
Um,
Nami also, I
yeah.
think. Oh no, does he do it
Also,
later? I don't remember. But he does it to Nami.
for anyone watching, small trigger warning: we're gonna be talking about like familial abuse, or at least I am. If that's not something you want to
Yeah.
watch, maybe skip this one
Yeah,
and the
that's a
next
good
one.
idea. Um,
Um,
sort of inherent to the events
yeah,
that take place in this part of
I
the
mean,
story.
if you've watched or read Whole Cake Island, I feel like you would have known that and are maybe cool with it in this context. But yeah, just small trigger warning in case it
Yeah.
matters for anyone who's watching this. Um,
Um,
yes, because I think that it's slightly interesting that it is only Yonji with him being the youngest brother.
mhm.
Um, kind of because we see later on that like this character trait of Sanji and Yonji seems to be some sort of like coping mechanism, and like this is how they kind of like deal with what a woman is and how they were like trained and taught. I feel is a little bit interesting because they are the youngest, showing that like even maybe among the three, you know, supposed non-failures, there's a hierarchy where Yonji might have had some sort of
Yeah.
bullying from the other two.
I also wonder how much it ties into the fact that he's number 4, and in
Hmm.
Japanese, the word for 4 is the same as death. So it's
Yeah.
considered an unlucky number. So I don't know if it's Oda's playing on the joke of 4 being an unlucky number or not.
Hmm.
I hadn't really thought about that until just now, but it is something maybe worth thinking about. And we also get
Yeah.
introduced to Reiju here, who I think is
The
incredibly
the
interesting.
only one of these characters who I think is decent.
Yeah, I think she's really interesting. I'll get more into her later when we learn more
I
about her.
love her raid suit design. Spoiler alert, these things are called raid suits.
I think they say that at some point, don't they?
Okay,
I remember them saying
maybe, I
it.
don't know. But no, I think her design is sick as hell.
Yeah, I
I
like that she
love
has like moth wings.
the poison moth vibe with her poison pink sort of power.
Yeah. Also, she's
Also, it's
not like
also
a
interest.
devil fruit user. She just like did that.
No, none of I don't believe that any of
Yeah, because they're all
the Germa
science.
kids are devil fruit. They just have scientific ability. And
Yeah,
then we've already seen a poison man. It's not like she could have the poison fruit.
that's true. Unless Magellan's
I
dead, but
do.
I don't think we know. We think we know
I
he's
don't.
alive, so
Yeah.
because we've seen
As
him in
far as we
a
know,
cover
Magellan is
story.
alive. Um, I think it's interesting that we continue this bit of Luffy being poisoned all the time,
Yeah, and
and
then
that
him just like surviving because he almost got killed by Magellan.
right?
Although in this situation, he almost doesn't make it. Chopper's like his antibodies are running out. Like he's about to
Yeah.
die to this
Well,
because it's been
well,
like a
apparently
day or two.
the fish that he ate is supposed to kill you on like contact.
Yeah, and he
Like
ate a bunch of it.
it could kill a giant on contact, and he ate a bunch of the skin.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we move into
yeah.
Chocolate Town, and we get some really great outfits for the crew.
Oh yeah.
Um,
The drip in this arc is all
the drip in this arc
fantastic.
is
From
fantastic. I
the
love
original
Nami's
outfits
dress.
into the mafia outfits at the end of this,
Yeah.
all fire as
I
hell.
love Brooke's outfit. I think Luffy's it's not happened yet, but it might be my favorite. The like white
Yeah. Mhm.
like vest that he's wearing with the
He
red
just looks so
shorts.
good in
He just
white.
white and red is such a good look for Luffy
Mhm.
that I really love. And so as we move into Chocolate Town, we get introduced to who might be one of the most important characters in this section.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I was gonna say the most important, but I'm not quite sure if
Yeah.
that's the case or not.
Yep.
We get
Nitro
introduced
the
to
Jelly.
Nitro the Jelly and Rabby in the carpet,
Yep. The dynamic duo and
and also
some
Pudding,
lady. Yeah.
um, who is a real enigma to me now, having finished this little
Yeah.
section. Um, because I feel like I just get into Pudding now? Do I just go all the way in with Pudding right now?
We can't go all the way on Pudding right now. We
Okay,
gotta we
I don't
I mean
know.
I you know what actually yeah we can.
We
There's
can
no
just get
fucking
right
rules
into
to this.
Pudding. There's no rules to this. We used to do this completely unstructured. So like, Pudding is so strange because at
Oh.
first, I mean, I totally bought it. Like I didn't. There was no doubt in my mind that Pudding was a good
Yeah.
character and that she was a
I don't
sweet, perfect angel.
I have seen a lot of reads of One Piece as I've said before. Everyone was fooled. I don't think I don't know a single person who was like I knew from the start.
Start that Pudding was
And
evil.
if you did know from the start, leave a comment.
Leave a comment and like the video. Um, but I don't know. I just like Oda, and Oda builds off so much stuff that like the way that he traditionally introduces you to a character that is
Yeah,
good.
this feels nearly identical to the introduction to like Rebecca.
Yeah, with like feeding Luffy, like excusing Luffy for
Ex-
eating her entire cafe so that
right.
she can be nice to them and like thanking them and getting all embarrassed about the fact that he likes her food and stuff like this is all like it's all these telltale signs of like what a character like this normally looks like in One Piece. And
Mm-hmm.
like okay, presumably then this character is someone who is in a similar position to Sanji and doesn't really want to do this marriage but is being forced by her family in the same way that Sanji is being forced by his, and that when Luffy figures this out it's all going to come crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
But it all comes crashing down in a very different way, doesn't it?
In a very different way.
uh
We will get into that. I got
yeah,
some
we can sort
thoughts.
of
I
stay somewhat structured in order.
yeah.
But she sort of gives Luffy this plan of like, hey, we're gonna meet. Sanji doesn't want to get married. I don't want to marry him if he doesn't want to get married. So we'll just
Mm-hmm.
all go meet up at the coast together.
Yeah, and I'll bring Sanji to you, and then you guys can leave, and it'll be cool and good.
Yeah. Also, I think it's
Pedro does
interesting to note
almost
that
Pedro almost cuts her throat in this
Pedro
panel.
does not trust her initially. So
Initially, yeah.
Pedro was smarter than the rest of us, I guess.
I mean, you know, he's been here before. He knows these people. He knows
Yeah. He knows
this
that the
nation.
Charlottes probably shouldn't be trusted.
Yeah.
So we get this sort of plan to go meet in this area. We also get introduced to the other two brothers as they are
Yeah.
ending a war.
It's Niji and
Niji and Ichiji.
Ichiji. Yes. Ichiji, Niji, Yonji. Yeah.
Yeah, Ichiji, Niji, Sanji, Yonji. One, two, three,
Yeah.
four. And
Um.
so the crew sets out to make it to this meetup point. We get some cool
Mhm.
navigation and stuff. We learn a little bit more about like just sort of the really interesting world building of this location.
Yeah.
I
It's
think this
a
is
super. We talked about this a little bit earlier before the cameras were on, but how cool it is that Whole Cake Island isn't just like the one island of Whole Cake. It's this whole like archipelago of islands that Big Mom controls.
yeah,
And like there's like a political structure. Like you have the people like the mayors and governors of all these different islands and towns that are all based off of different kinds of foods.
yeah.
It's just very it feels very fleshed out and like
Yeah, very fleshed out, very detailed, very like a
Right.
return to form for Oda. I had mentioned this
Yeah.
before, I keep bringing this up, but Fishman Island really disappointed me in terms of like the world building of that location
Mhm.
felt really lacking. Maybe because we were moving through it so quickly and like we really only get to
Mhm.
see like the main city. But it
Yeah,
feels
and I
like,
will say, I feel
especially
like
with Dressrosa
we
and
definitely feel like
especially
we're
Whole
gonna.
Cake, it feels like we're back to
Oh
like
yeah.
the era of like Skypiea or Water 7,
Mhm.
where like you just get such a beautiful vision of like this is a place that exists in this world and it is thought out and like has these structures and is like built
Right.
upon and exists and the
Like it
crew
has
happens
existed.
to
This
be
has
here. It's
existed
not
for
like
a while. There is like actual, like it is lived in.
yeah, like a lived in place as opposed to like a
Mhm.
set piece, which I feel like Fishman Island felt a little bit more like a set
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
Um
I agree.
and then we get sort of introduced to Big Mom for real this
Yes.
time. We've gotten snippets of her before, but this is like
I
our first real appearance. I'll let you
find
talk first on Big
I
Mom.
find Big Mom so terrifying from this introduction where she what we later find out is her stealing the life force and soul out of one of her sons simply because she's hungry.
Yeah.
A little bit later on, the whole the like
The like dartboard wheel.
Alice the like Alice in Wonderland like song that she sings with her homies.
Yeah.
It's this very like horror-esque vibe that she gives off of like this super like unempathetic, murderous, but like not in the same way, but in a similar vibe to like a Harley Quinn, where like she's very lighthearted and goofy and silly, but also like a murderous psychopath.
But also she'll rip your soul out of your body if you defy
Yeah,
her.
and I don't know if it's just like this creeps me out, but like Big Mom fucking scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, Big Mom is like I don't know, she is more
Like
than really any villain we've had a very imposing presence.
yeah, and I mean that definitely for the first I guess adversarial emperor that we meet
Yeah.
um fully, I think that fits. She has this like immense presence of strength and of malice that she
Yeah.
kind of
And I think it's
exudes.
it's interesting how she sort of heavily contrasts both Whitebeard and Shanks in that respect.
Oh, absolutely.
Cuz like our initial introduction cuz I think Whitebeard as a character when he's introduced in Marineford has a lot of this same presence that
Hmm.
Big Mom has in this arc, but reversed. Like we
Yeah,
get
like
this
the
sense of
opposite vibe.
like this guy is a living legend,
Hmm.
whereas like Big Mom is this like, oh, this is a living nightmare.
Right, exactly.
And then Shanks is like this opposite in terms of like scale and presence. Not in the fact that Shanks has no presence, but Shanks is like this very, I don't know, low key, understated kind of character
Hmm.
that
Yes.
has this weight behind him because of it. Like
Yeah,
everything else in this world is
especially
of One Piece is
being
so loud and bombastic, and Shanks is like calm, laid back,
right.
collected, smiling, like he's like a friend despite the
Exactly.
scar and the missing arm, and it gives this presence like he's always in
And
control.
he's also the only one of the emperors, at least of the original emperors. I mean, that that were first there. That is like a regular sized human.
I mean, even if you include Blackbeard, Blackbeard's
I
still
mean,
like
yeah, Blackbeard's
twice as
also
big or
big.
bigger than Shanks. Like Shanks is just a guy,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
he's just a
think
dude, and he still is put on the same pedestal as these literal
as these
monsters.
literal monsters, and it makes you ask even more questions than you are already asking about Shanks,
Yes,
especially
but
when
we
you
are not going
learn,
to do that
especially when
because
you learn
then we will get into another 30
another
minute
30
rabbit hole
minute
of
rabbit
what the
hole of
hell
what
is
the
all
hell's up with
going on with
Shanks.
Shanks.
But like that is extended even further with later we learn about a marriage that a political marriage that Big Mom was not
Hmm.
able to secure,
Yeah,
and she's upset that she wasn't
with
able
the
to secure
Swede.
that because she thinks with that power, then she would have been capable of fighting Shanks and Whitebeard
Right.
and Kaido.
Exactly.
So like right now, she
Exactly.
doesn't believe herself strong enough to fight someone like
They're
Shanks
they
because if
all
she
kind of
was, she would
feel
do it.
like the sort of like the like what the Marines are like talking about, like the balance of power, like all of these different forces are in a deadlock right now.
Yeah,
Of
where like
like
they're
if
all
Big
waiting
Mom
to
were to
get,
attack Kaido,
then like
then
everything falls to shit.
right. And that's why I think the repercussions from Dressrosa are really gonna be felt because of what Doflamingo said at the end
Yeah,
of like I've
holding it
been
all
the guy
together.
holding it all together. I've been the puppet master behind the scenes pulling the strings.
And
Without me, these fucking monsters are gonna go crazy.
yeah, and without their puppet master behind the strings, they're gonna get real agitated at Monkey D. Luffy because Luffy is picking fights,
Picking fights with all of them.
picking fights with all of them except for Shanks, I guess.
Like he,
I
I
want the
mean,
I want the Davy back fight with Shanks. That would be hard.
right? Yeah, I love that idea.
And we also get Jinbei's reappearance. I
Jinbei
am
is here.
so excited to
Oh
see
my
Jinbei.
god.
I adore Jinbei. I love that Jinbei continues to be this like he's almost Luffy's opposite. In that he is
I get
like
what you're saying. Yeah.
he has like the same values and morals and like goals of Monkey D. Luffy,
Mhm.
but he approaches things in the opposite way that Luffy does. He is this like he's slower to act, he's more controlled,
Mhm.
and he is like this counterpoint to Luffy, this counterweight and this voice of
Mhm.
reason that is able to help guide Luffy when
Right.
he doesn't know what
That
direction
Luffy
to point his
needs
rage in.
because say what you will about like Zoro or Sanji, they're still goofy teenagers.
Yeah. Jinbei is like
I guess they're
he's
young adults now, but
yeah, Jinbei is experienced at this. He's been
yeah,
doing this for
he's like 40 or 50.
and
He's
he's been a pirate for a while.
for most of his like life.
At least like 16 years, if not more.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
he
And
is
so
like
Jinbei is able to like give counsel to Luffy, but still be, an underling.
yeah,
He's not
he's
like a
not
Rayleigh. He's
yeah,
still
but he's able to give like he's able to be this voice of reason and
right.
provide a different perspective to Luffy who is struggles to see different perspectives when he's in his like in his mode when he's on.
Yeah, in that mode that he gets in.
In that mode that Monkey D. Luffy is wont to get in.
Hmm.
Um, and so we get this initial. This is also where we sort of learn Jinbei is
Yeah, we
trying
get
to leave
the
the pirates to join Luffy, and he's like, "I can't do this. Like what she is
uh-huh.
making would make me do if I tried to leave is
Yeah.
immoral and dishonorable, and I will
I
not
also
accept
want
it."
to I want to point out because it's a small detail, but it's an important detail I think. That if you go back at some point, I don't remember exactly when they say it. It says that Mama's power acts only if you have fear in your heart, or
Really,
something
I
like
did
that.
not catch that part.
I think it might have been back when she was like murdering her son.
I see. Her powers are really interesting too. I was not at
Yeah,
all
the powers
expecting
of
her
the
to have
soul
the
fruit.
soul fruit. And I
Isn't
think
that
it's
crazy?
it's a power set that, especially with what you were just saying about the fear in your heart, that I think is going to have interesting things to interact with at least two of our main crew. One of them has already sort of happened, because we also learned that her powers do not work on dead people. She can't
Correct.
put a soul into a corpse or like puppeteer a corpse. Um, so
Hmm.
interesting that there may be a corpse on this island walking around. But we'll get to him later. I'm gonna hold my
Uh-huh.
tongue on Brook.
Yeah, so we get the thing about Jinbei rejecting the wheel and saying that he'll stay a part of the Big Mom Pirates
Yeah,
for now.
for now. And
It
then we
lasts it
reach
lasts like maybe like an hour or two.
yeah, it lasts a couple hours before he,
Hmm.
decides to just join Luffy's crew anyway.
Yeah.
And then we come up
Um.
with this plan to split into two groups. Luffy group that's gonna go save Sanji, and then Brook's group with Pedro, who's gonna go copy the road poneglyph for Robin.
Hmm.
And we're gonna do both of these things without alerting Big Mom, and then we're gonna get out of here and no biggie.
He is being so quiet. He's being so demure, so cutesy.
Yes, he's
Luffy is not going to cause a scene.
yeah, no, for
Surely.
sure. He would never do such a thing. Like get on land and immediately scream, "Hey Sanji, we're here." Um, I don't, and then we get into the seduction forest. I don't have much to say here, really.
Yeah. I mean, we
I
meet
think
Pound,
a
with
lot of it is
Lola's
like,
dad, but like,
yeah, a lot of it is like learning sort of just about how this area works and like what Big Mom's powers really are.
hmm
Um,
we do.
let's see. I'm trying to
I think the
remember.
next interesting thing is meeting Judge,
Yeah, meeting Judge.
who
And
is
really
again
imposing.
also has this present.
He
this
has a
aura.
real imposing presence
Mm-hmm.
because he stands out so much from this environment.
Right.
Like he is like this turbo military guy. He looks like
Mm-hmm.
a Power Rangers villain.
Right.
Um,
Um, and
and
we see
he's
later on that we never see him without his helmet on,
yeah,
which just has this sort of like always in.
always in war mode.
That's who I wanted to
Oh,
do when we were reading this earlier. It's like Endeavor from My Hero Academia, who would always wear the flame mask,
yeah.
even like at home, and like always had his flames active, as if he's like always, he's always on. He never shows any like his actual face.
Yeah.
That's who it reminded me of, and it's the same thing with Judge.
Judge is this really interesting antagonist so far.
Hmm.
And I think part of it is that I get the impression, and this is sort of like the way that he is drawn most of the time, and is sort of a
Hmm.
result of how big he is, that he's always looking down on everyone and everything around him,
Especially Sanji.
especially Sanji.
Yeah, I mean, like, I
And I
think that is
think,
very much intentional on Oda's part of
yeah,
to draw him as this larger than life person who metaphorically and literally is always looking down on people.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, we meet Judge. They have a little back and forth between him and Sanji.
Yeah, where
And then
he gets into this thing, which I actually want to get into a little bit with Sanji.
mhm,
I forget if this is it's both in the in within the story and then within the backstory. We sort of learn this idea of like you should not be cooking because a king does not serve.
right, he has this very like black and white view on what
On like
like
what royalty
royalty
means.
and his position and how his position is affected by his legacy, his children.
Yeah,
He seems very caught up in the appearance of
of being this
military,
like turbo
of
military
royalty,
warlord.
which is probably a large part of the reason of why he wants to rule the North Blue again,
Yeah,
because Germa once ruled the North Blue.
blue and currently doesn't, and he wants to
Yeah.
be seen as this big guy. Like he wants to be seen as a big deal,
Hmm.
but it, I guess is either incapable of or not confident enough in his science to take on something like the Grand Line.
Yeah. I mean,
And
like
so
they are a big deal. Like I don't want it to seem like Germa isn't like strong or capable, but like their goal is
their
not
goal is small
as
time.
big as other people's,
Their
which I also think,
goal, I think maybe it's less that he has great ambitions, but he has great pride.
yeah.
And so he is setting ambitions that are just big enough to make his pride as big as he needs it to be. And make his
Hmm.
ego
I
and make
like that.
his
Yeah,
like
yeah,
his presence big without needing to actually risk anything. I think it's this sort of once again I'm coming back to Crocodile, this
yeah. Ooh.
interesting sort of inversion of Crocodile because I feel like every villain in some way seems to build off of Crocodile.
Hmm.
Which makes me so excited for whenever Crocodile is going to show up again in a major role.
Right.
Of like, I think maybe in some small way, even though he would never recognize it or admit it, Judge is a coward just like Crocodile is.
Hmm.
Because if he was really this all-powerful military guy, why isn't he taking on the Grand Line?
Right.
He
Why
wants to
doesn't he
take.
want to be Pirate King?
Why doesn't he want to be Pirate King, or why doesn't he want to destroy the world like Dofi does?
Hmm.
It seems like he's dreaming small because he doesn't see the value in needing to dream big because he can achieve his goals
Right.
without doing so.
And we know how
Which I
Oda
think
feels about
is
dreams.
we know how Oda feels about dreams, and I feel like it's a subversion of Sanji in the sense that Sanji is
Sanji's dream is something that we still don't even know if it
it
exists.
exists. It is something that he was laughed at as a cook and as a
Hmm.
kid when he I guess when he didn't know it for very long as a kid, but they would have made fun of him if he said he wanted to find the All Blue.
Yeah.
And like he dreams big, and to achieve that end is willing to serve others and
Hmm.
and be a support for others in order to make it that far.
Right.
Whereas Judge will never put himself below someone else, and to achieve a greater dream, he needs to be able to do something like that. And he is not capable of doing so.
Mhm. I do love this fight
This fight is
between
very
the
cool.
two. The paneling and the action pacing is really good, especially intercut with all these little bits of Sanji's backstory.
Yeah.
That are, I mean, we know what it is now, but like these are all like little teases for us as you're reading, um, of like this. Presumably, this is Sanji flashing back to the abuse that he experienced as a child,
Yeah.
now experiencing abuse at his father's hands again as an adult.
Exactly.
Um, and the I think the most interesting part of this fight is when Judge calls in his wall and
Yeah.
uses his human shield to stabbing through his men
Yeah. Because
to
Sanji
attack
won't
Sanji.
attack them.
Exactly,
And this sort
because
of
he is
gets
kind.
me. I'm gonna hold off talking further on the human shield thing when we get to when we learn more about the
Hmm. Hmm.
soldiers. But I want to take this moment. One of my notes is to talk about Diable Jam.
Yeah.
Because I haven't talked about it yet, and I would like to talk about it.
Hmm.
Because I've been doing some thinking about what the deal is with Diable Jam.
Yeah.
Uh, because in this moment, in this fight, as well as later on, the Vinsmokes are surprised when Sanji does this.
Hmm.
And initially, previously, I think I predicted this maybe back in Zoe. I was thinking that he could do this on by some account of whatever his family is.
Hmm.
But we have since learned that the experiments that they conducted when the kids were in the womb to make them all human weapons, because of Sanji's mother's actions, Sanji was the only one born as a normal person.
Hmm.
Which then begs the question, why the hell is Sanji able to do this, and where did he learn how to do this?
Right.
Because initially, I had thought back to the line from and maybe I even said this in Zoe, maybe I'm repeating myself, but the line from Enies Lobby where he
Hmm.
says that God created food and the devil made spices.
I think you said this in one of the live reads, not in Zoe.
Okay, I said in one of the live reads. Thank you. I couldn't remember if
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of recording lately. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
It's all starting to blur together a little bit. But I was thinking that maybe Sanji is this sort of in between of the God and the devil,
Mm.
in the sense that maybe he has two fathers. He has Zeph, a god
Hmm.
of food, and um, Judge, who is the devil. And so Sanji is able to mix that darkness in his past with the bright
Hmm.
of his future to create food with spice.
Right.
And that somehow that results in Diable Jam. I don't know
Hmm.
exactly. Maybe it's just wouldn't it be cool if Sanji's foot was on fire? But I feel like Oda doesn't do I don't know, Oda doesn't do things unintentionally, you know?
Right.
You don't
So
have
it feels
like
like there
you don't
is
have
a.
like 7 arcs of Nami slowly building up proficiency with and improving the technology of the Climate Act for Sanji's power set to just be wouldn't it be cool if he could put his foot on fire.
Right.
So like or like Zoro having to practice all these different things to like master cutting steel and everything like back in
Hmm.
pre-time skip. So I'm curious where Diable Jam comes from. This is something I've been curious about since Annie's Lobby because it feels
Hmm.
like we keep learning more and more about how the other crew members are able to do the things that they do.
Right.
But this one is still a surprise, is still confusing to us, and it is equally confusing to Germa 66.
Hmm.
And the fact that they don't know what it is makes me more curious about it.
Right.
Because there's something going on. I don't know, I don't think Zeph taught him that, but maybe he did.
I. I mean,
Or
he is called
maybe,
Red Leg Zeph,
but he
who.
was called Red Leg Zeph because he always had blood on his boots, right?
Yeah.
Whereas he's Black Leg Sanji. I don't know. My
Hmm.
guess is that maybe he's combining something he did learn when he was a
Hmm.
kid. I don't know. It's just like it feels like there's something I'm missing there, and I think it may have something thematically connected to Sanji's past with
Right.
Zeph and
With
Judge,
Germa.
because
Yeah.
there is the god who gave him food in Zeph, quite literally gave him food,
Hmm.
um, as opposed to the man who gave him nothing but beatings and
Yeah.
hatred and not love.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I have it as a note, and I want to talk about it now because it's not going to come up later. I can't remember when this is said. I think I may have skipped past it when I was looking for other stuff. I want to talk about. I believe the homies say what Mama's dream is at the I think it's at the
Oh
end of the volume
yeah.
82. but I can't find it. Oh no, yeah, is it here? A country where all the people come together.
Hmm.
The homies basically
All the races of the
the
world.
homies basically explain that Big Mom's dream is that she wants a land where everybody is equal and every race across the whole world is together in harmony and fun as one
Hmm.
big family.
Yep. Doesn't that sound great?
It does sound great on the surface, especially when you got talking mountains and rainbows and clouds and sunshines and trees and flowers singing it to you. And the
Yeah.
first thing that I thought of when I saw this scene revealed to me, and this is in my notes,
Hmm.
is I thought back to Dressrosa, where I forget when Sabo says this, but Sabo says, I think it's when he's fighting Fujitora, he says, I don't do discrimination.
Hmm.
Which is a similar thing to what either the homies or Big Mom herself says in this section
Right.
about her dream. And at first I was like, well, what is it that differentiates Sabo from Big Mom? And it's interesting that
Hmm.
I keep going, what differentiates Sabo from main antagonist?
Hmm.
Um, but as I've gotten further, it has become, I think, a little more clear to me that Big Mom's vision of it is a people who are equally under her control.
Exactly.
One
Everyone
big
equal under Big
under
Mom.
Big Mom, one big her big family that is composed of the entire world who all dance and sing and make her happy.
Hmm.
As opposed to Sabo, who I imagine would be opposed to that sort of equality. I
Yeah.
don't think he would view that as
Equality.
as no discrimination. I think he would view
Hmm.
that as inequality, injustice, stealing people's freedom. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. I want to do more thinking on Sabo. I just wish I had more to go off of with Sabo because I feel like there's something there that I
Yeah.
really could dig my teeth into, and I'm just missing what it is right now. But I was
Hmm.
thinking a little bit on Sabo. I'm probably going to do more thinking on Sabo
Of
as
course,
as
as you always
things
do.
as I always do whenever Sabo comes into my thoughts. I'm sure when the next villain, when Kaido's like, I just want a kingdom of everybody's a beast and we're all friends, and I'll be like, wait, that's like Sabo. Uh, I don't know if he's quite like that. He did execute a guy for no reason that we're aware of yet with Kozuki Oden. Um, let's see. And then we move into what do we move into next? We sort of get bouncing back and forth between different characters.
Hmm.
Oh, no, this is when we get into Big Mom's dream, I think.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
Caesar shows up again.
Yay!
Yay,
You're so
Caesar's
happy about
here.
this.
We sort of continue moving through. This is sort of when we get into the Seduction Forest. Do you have anything you want to mention with the Seduction Forest?
Uh,
While I'm sort
no.
of moving through it, maybe
I
you
mean,
have
like,
some notes to talk
I think
about.
that the the inclusion of King Bomb is interesting just because he is named after the guy who created or wrote Wizard of Oz, um, which is very obviously very reminiscent of this setting. But other than like the Cracker fight, I don't think there's anything super impactful to do with the Seducing Woods.
Yeah, the Cracker fight is interesting. I think Cracker has a surprisingly interesting power for how lame it is.
Yeah, right.
He does some pretty interesting things with it. Um, Luffy has to go Gear 4 against this guy,
Yeah,
which is,
just
I think,
one of
like
Big Mom's like
one of Big Mom's
underlings.
underlings requires a thing that he had to use to beat Doflamingo, which sort of puts into perspective maybe why Doflamingo really wasn't willing to go through with his plan to destroy everything because he was not built for this yet,
Yeah,
if ever.
he's not that guy yet.
He was not that guy yet. And so Luffy just sort of goes into Gear 4.
Hmm. We get
Um,
the introduction of Gear 4 Tank Man.
we get it. Oh, Tankman I think happens in a little bit, but Tankman, I was
Yeah.
correct. There is another form. However, is not really
Yep.
what I was thinking of. Because it still doesn't, to me, Tankman still does not seem to resolve the problem that Rayleigh presented to us,
Yeah.
which is that Gear 4 takes too much energy. Because the reason he
Hmm.
was even able to Tankman was because he had eaten biscuits for 11 straight hours
Yeah.
and was about to explode literally. Um, his rubber was about to burst out, like he was
Hmm.
about to pop like a balloon, which allowed him to go into Gear 4 Tank Man, which he uses
Yeah.
to
It
unleash the
it
force.
does say like Gear 4 Tank Man stuffed version or something like that. So presumably there is
The
a
normal
like
Tank Man?
regular like in a similar sense to like the Gum Gum Balloon attack,
Maybe. Um,
maybe,
I do think
which
it's
is like focused
curious.
on
I
a
was
defensive
expecting there to
form.
be like two versions of Gear 4, one that's more like short-term huge burst of power, and then one that
Hmm.
more is more long-term sustained power. It seems like Gear 4 is more versatile than that.
Yeah.
Um, I still hold that there is more than just Bounce Man and Tank Man, but I am happy to see that I was correct in thinking that the Bounce Man was not the end of it.
Yeah.
And then we get into this moment that I want to get into a little bit and sort of transitions into me, one of my main topics for this section,
Hmm.
sort of getting all my topics out of the way before you have to talk about Sanji for a while. Um,
Yeah.
is this moment where they're at the dinner table, Sanji's at the dinner table with his brothers,
Just a
and
nice little family dinner.
Niji's like, I'm not finishing this, I'm done, I'm not hungry. And Sanji's like,
Hmm.
no, you're finishing your damn food.
Yeah.
And then he says that the food is shit and calls in the head chef, makes fun of her, and then throws the food at her. To which Sanji
Hmm.
stops him and eats the food off the floor and everything. And we get into more of this like the prince should not serve. But I want to bring into this one of the things I've been thinking about the most, especially over the last day, which is parallels between Sanji and Zoro,
Oh yeah.
specifically Romance Dawn and Whole Cake.
Uh-huh. I know where you're going.
Um, because flashback all the way 800 and something chapters ago to Romance Dawn with Zoro, you
Hmm.
have sort of a similar path that Sanji takes in this early part of Whole Cake, Zoro does in that arc.
Yeah.
And with this girl here is similar to there's the little girl who made this food and then she upsets Helmeppo and then
Uh-huh.
Zoro eats the food off the ground and he's like I was going to eat that and then Helmeppo throws him in the gallows and then Zoro is willing to take that punishment for this other person and it isn't until he is made aware that that punishment is not going to just affect him
Hmm.
is when he breaks down and joins Luffy. And the
Yeah.
same thing happens here.
Hmm.
Whereas Sanji, obviously, he's not trying to protect this uh waitress as the main thing. He's trying to protect his crew
Hmm.
and the people at the Baratier. But
Right.
he is the same moment where he protects this girl, eats the food off the floor, is then punished for it because he is forced to take a beating from the brothers and he's not allowed to fight back or else they'll blow up his hands or kill
And
Zeph
so
or
I mean,
something.
and also so does the Cosette, the chef. She gets fucked up
Yeah,
because of this as
she
well.
also gets really fucked up and then he's like, okay, clearly I can't fight back. I'll just
Right.
take it and then they'll let Luffy be fine and then the big moment later when he learns, oh shit, this is way bigger than them just punishing me, and then he's finally willing to go and ask Luffy for help, which we'll get more into later, is
Hmm.
similar to what Zoro's initial arc of joining the crew.
Ah, I see. I
And I
was
think it's
when you said this earlier, I had no idea what you're talking about. I didn't even make the connection to
and so I think it's
the rice
interesting that
ball.
Oda in this arc of Sanji sort of reaffirming his alliance to the crew and rejoining and re-asking Luffy to be his friend and his crewmate,
Hmm.
we get a parallel to when Zoro first joined the crew. And further, there's more to this also, is what does Zoro initially do when Luffy asks him to join the crew?
There's no.
He says, no, piss off, I'm a pirate hunter. And what
Hmm.
does Sanji do when Luffy first shows up in this
Uh.
arc to come get him back? He says, piss off, you're inferior to me, leave.
Hmm.
I'm not joining the crew.
Yeah.
And so I think the parallels are really interesting, and we
Mm.
learn a lot about Sanji's sort of the defining character of Sanji, which Brook will bring up later, and I'll talk about this later when we get to Brook, of
Hmm.
like Sanji will care for and sacrifice himself for other people to a fault.
Hmm.
And it is both his greatest strength and his greatest weakness, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And I think very similarly, Zoro is almost the same thing.
Hmm.
And I think
Because I mean,
you see that
in Thriller
in
Bark, you
Thriller
see
Bark.
that in
You see it in Sabaody,
yeah,
you know? So I think it's
and
really interesting, and I like, and this is part of what I like so much about the way this arc is structured, is the fact that Zoro isn't here.
Right.
And
We talked
so
about this earlier about how the cast of this arc
feels very
is one of its
intentional.
greatest strengths.
Feels
Yeah.
incredibly intentional. And I think Zoro being absent calls to mind the lack of this like first mate's sort of usual style that we don't have, and then so that
Mhm.
sort of forces you to see that Sanji has been the same way this whole time.
Right.
Because now when Sanji is not around anybody else, when none of the crew is watching, he's still just like that,
Mhm.
which I think is really interesting.
Very interesting.
Um,
Um.
I think that's most of what I had to say there on that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we find out that like the the
and then
Baratier is being held
we find out the
hostage.
Baratie is being held hostage, and then we move into another thing that I think is incredibly interesting, and I have a lot to talk about. It's weird. A lot of the things I want to talk about are sort of front loaded here, and then everything hits the
Uh-huh.
fan, and I think you probably have a lot more to talk about once stuff starts to hit the fan.
Absolutely, I do.
Um, we get introduced to the true power behind the military might of Germa
Of
66,
Germa, the popular streamer.
of Germa 985. I don't know why they got the number wrong in the manga.
Weird, yeah.
Some weird error from Oda. um,
Just
but
imagine, I'm now imagining fucking Germa under the mask that Judge
the Juz
wears.
wears. That'd be so funny. Um, but we learn that the way that their military is set up is that they have a bunch of like test tube babies that they are creating with the what is it called, the like the life of all
So
things or something,
the bloodline element
the bloodline
discovered
element discovered by the cooperation between
Doctor.
Judge and Dr. Vegapunk.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Oh,
not
Vegapunk,
necessarily just those two, but there was like a science
a
team.
science team, and Judge and Vegapunk were both a part of it. Vegapunk, you
Mm-hmm.
continue to confound me. I have not had time to
He
really think
showed up
on.
again.
I haven't really had time to think about Vegapunk this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to believe he's a good guy. And I mean, hey, he's not the one who invented the test tube babies and experimented on his
Yeah,
wife's children.
Judge just used that technology to do
Judge used that
this.
technology for evil, and I think I just Frankie clicked pieces. I'm like having my mind palace is clicking into place right now. Of like I think maybe that's where they're going with Vegapunk. Maybe Frankie will
Hmm.
be a part of when Vegapunk appears, especially since Frankie's had some interactions with the pacifistas.
Right.
Of
Well,
like
he
maybe
was also in
Vegapunk.
Vegapunk's lab for two
Yeah, he
years.
was in Vegapunk's Laboratories. Maybe Frankie's and I guess Tom's ideal of like the things you create are not like existing is not a crime, existing is not wrong or right. Maybe
Right.
Vegapunk views his experiments and creations in the same way, and it just so happens that the world government and military forces keep using all of his inventions for horrible evil, and all the good
Yeah.
stuff he made got left on an island that's freezing over to be discovered by Frankie. Um, but I want to talk about these test tube babies within the
Yeah,
context of, we talk a lot here about One Piece, which is becoming one of my favorite stories of all time, and I think
absolutely.
probably what your favorite story of all time.
Yeah, it's my favorite story.
And so far, I've had very little opportunity to talk about one of, if not my favorite story of all time, which is the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy,
Woo.
which I talked very briefly about in Zoe, but that was mostly just a setting thing.
Hmm.
But this here with Germa 66, and I'm going to do my best to not ramble about this or get too deep in the weeds because the last thing I want to do is spoil the Xenoblade trilogy for anybody, especially not in the
Hmm.
middle of a whole cake video. So
Also, we also maybe have plans to do some
to
Xenoblade
do
content
maybe
at
do
some point.
Xenoblade at some point, if all goes well at some point. So to sort of establish what I'm thinking about and sort of get the connections going,
Hmm.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3, part of its basic premise is you have these two armies that have been locked in war for, as far as they're aware, eternity.
Ooh.
And the people that fight in these wars are these children who are born out of these pods at age 10 and they
Oh.
die when they turn 20.
Interesting.
And they exist in this world at least at the start when they were initially told is they are basically these people exist just to fight and to kill other people, and by
Mhm.
killing the enemies on the other side they gain their life force and are able to live for a little bit longer.
Um.
And so you have a similar thing going on here of like they
Mhm.
have this army made of people who don't even know that they're being born in test tubes, that are
Right.
being born exclusively with the purpose to fight. And then you
Mhm.
have the body block thing, which is very similar to something that sort of happens in Xenoblade 3. One of the major antagonist groups that are sort of somewhat behind this ongoing war have the ability to
Mhm.
pull the life out of these people and use it on them, like give it to themselves.
Um.
And so you have this
Uh-huh.
similar thing here of like there's points in Xenoblade 3, especially like in the early parts of the story, where like you're trying to attack these Mobius guys, and they just are like drawing the life force out of the people you're trying to save, and it's like, well, how do we even stop them? Is a
Right.
similar thing going on here. Obviously, these people are not. I don't know. It's hard to say how much these people that they're creating in these test tubes are people, because it sort
Yeah.
of depends a little bit on sort of how the world itself is structured. Is probably maybe a little different from the way that Xenoblade 3 handles it. But the soldiers in Xenoblade 3, to not get into any of the details within the actual plot of the story, but sort of serve as this metaphor basically for like the way that a um, certain systems such as like capitalism or I don't know, like fascism, like maybe you would see with what Germa's sort of visual language alludes to with certain fascistic
Mhm.
regimes, of like the way that it takes the youth, uses and abuses them and drains them for everything they're worth, and then leaves them behind so that the people who are on top, the fat cats who have control and created this system, can gain from their suffering.
Right.
And I see sort of the same thing here, and there's more to
Right.
it than that, but I'm not going to get into any more than that. That's sort of
Okay.
my thoughts and why I think this is so interesting, and I really hope this gets I learn more about what's going on here.
Mhm. Oh, I love
Whether
that.
that be more about like why they've created them like this and like what these people think and like what Judge thinks about them and all this stuff, or if we learn more about like why Vegapunk created this bloodline element in the first place, and then how that
Mhm.
relates to Sanji and Nichiji and Yonji and Niji.
Right.
Because they are, well, I guess Sanji's not, but he was supposed to be, and they are also these, not fully artificial like these guys apparently are, but
But
not normal,
modified and
modified to
yeah.
some degree to make them into soldiers who can't feel and only want to attack, similar to the
Mhm.
way that the soldiers in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 are indoctrinated to only think of their lives as part of an endless war that they're trying to
Mhm.
win.
Interesting.
And I think you see this sort of endless war mindset in the familial relationships within the Vinsmoke family and the abuse that
Right.
Sanji's
Yeah,
been through,
absolutely.
which I think is really interesting and compelling to me.
Mhm.
I
Man,
think that's
maybe this Xenoblade thing is actually kind of cool here.
oh holy shit, this Xenoblade thing is kind of cool, but I'm not gonna get into any more with Xenoblade because I really don't want to spoil it. Um, and I feel like I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
And then is this do we just get into Sanji's backstory now? We sure fucking do.
Oh boy. Oh
Oh my
boy.
god, this shit is rough to read.
Dark, bro.
It is really dark.
It is
Um,
tough to
it
read.
is really tough to read. It is harrowing.
Mhm.
You feel so bad for Sanji the whole time.
Yeah. Mhm. Which
He's getting
I was worried. I was worried going into this arc that you were going to have like a hard time empathizing with Sanji as not a big Sanji fan. But even still, I think this arc does such an amazing job of showing this of even for someone who doesn't like Sanji as much as I do, of showing the tragedy and trauma that he goes through at the abuse or at from the abuse at the hands of Judge.
Judge and his brothers.
I want to push back on that a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. Not to say that his brothers and sister don't abuse him, because they do. But I have a hard time blaming them for that.
I would
These are
agree
people
with that. I would
who
agree with that.
have had their
Their empathy and their
all
pity
of
and their
their emotion
emotions ripped out of them,
stripped
with the
away from
exception
them
of
at birth.
Reiju and Sanji.
Yes. Um, they when they beat up on Sanji and attack and laugh at him, Judge doesn't do anything. In fact, he encourages it. He says if he's too weak, then you got to toughen him up.
Yeah.
Um, they are praised by their father for bullying their sibling. He openly says that he is a loser, a failure, a waste of a life in
Yeah,
front of the
what a
kids.
waste of a life.
Yeah. Um, and then when when Judge fakes Sanji's death,
Fakes Sanji's death, puts an
puts him in,
iron mask
puts
on
him in the
him.
iron mask and leaves him in the dungeon. If you go to the next page,
This one
I
here.
think. No, the next one. Move a little further ahead. A little further. Right here. Go back. Yeah, that one. Is the first time we ever see Judge smile in the entire manga. Is after Sanji is quote unquote dead.
Has been removed and locked away in a dungeon with an iron
And the
mask on
first
his
time that
face.
he is showing empathy and love to his children.
Yeah.
His successful children.
Yeah.
And so I think I have a very hard time with blaming Niji, Ichiji, and Yonji for the way that they treat Sanji.
I would agree with you on that. I think that it's um, similar to like these children have basically just been indoctrinated by Judge
Right.
to be evil and terrible and awful to the point that before birth their emotions were literally like
Yeah. They
biologically removed from
have
them.
no emotions. They
Like
not even just like empathy or pity. Like none.
yeah. In sort of like a cruel way, these guys are almost suffering more than Sanji is, and they don't know
Right. Exactly.
because they are not really alive.
Hmm.
They're basically just like greater versions of the puppets that Judge creates.
Right.
And I think it's
And
it's just so heartbreaking
right.
for
And I mean,
Sanji.
we get these flashbacks for Sanji here. I mean, we can scroll back a little bit um, of him the rations that he's given through the window. He's asked for like knives and cookbooks and things to like chef up his own meals that are prepared for him just because he loves cooking so much.
Yeah.
Um, and then we see this scene of Sanji, who is presumably just always loved cooking. It's something that he just enjoyed from birth.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
know. My impression is I mean, it could be that he just has enjoyed it since birth.
hmm
My thoughts is maybe that he comes to enjoy it because it's the only thing that gets his mother to seem better.
yeah, that's also
And so he's willing to go to any length to improve and get better at cooking because he wants to make her better,
hmm oh
which is just so heartbreaking. I this
hmm
this sweet woman, she's such a lovely person. And the
and I
way that
mean
she just like and just
the food
all of
that
this
Sanji had like
mm,
dropped in the rain and had like
dropped in the
wolves
rain and it got
attacking him.
smushed and it got partially eaten by a dog,
Yeah.
and so much of this I forgot happened in this
hmm
specific way, and now I'm thinking about,
Uh-huh.
and it is hitting even harder than it did
Uh-huh.
before. Um, and just like
And the same and just with a smile on her face eats this disgusting food
disgusting food, says yummy, and asks him to cook for her again before she's
before she
inevitably gone.
dies. And then we see Sanji,
Sanji
cooking,
cooking,
not cooking. He's chopping up bread
he's chopping up bread, and then
because he wants.
I also think it's really interesting to me that it is within this cage, this iron mask, that he discovers the all blue.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna talk about that too.
I think is really fascinating.
That this is when he is at his lowest,
It
at
is
his most
at his lowest that he
confined.
finds a
his
spark, a
dream.
dream. And I wonder how much that is something that is true for the whole crew.
Yeah.
I haven't done much thinking about this, but like, I don't know, because you have Zoro, who I think already wanted to be the strongest, but truly wants to become the strongest once Kuina dies.
Hmm.
Um, Man, Usopp really messed up everything, doesn't he? You have Nami, who started to want to chart everything and then had that
Well,
ripped away
no,
from her.
Usopp doesn't ruin this.
How does
Usopp
Usopp not ruin this?
wants to be a brave
Brave
warrior
warrior.
of
Oh,
the
that's
sea
true,
because
because his
because his
mother,
dad
his
because
dad
his
left,
dad
his mother
abandoned
passed.
him and his
Um,
mom died.
Speaking of that, I keep thinking about this, and I want to bring it up now just to mention that I've been thinking about it with Usopp.
Hmm.
I think that, and this is part of, I think I talked about this in one of the previous discussions, that I think that there's more to each of these dreams than we know, in the sense that I think Oda's going to flip them on their heads,
Hmm.
and not be as straightforward. And I think for Usopp, what I was thinking is that um, maybe becoming, because he's already brave, right? Like he's
Right.
already willing to overcome his cowardice to do things that need to be done. But what if
Hmm.
becoming a brave warrior of the sea means doing the only thing that his father Yasop is not brave enough to do, which is going back to Syrup Village?
Ooh.
That's what I was thinking. Anyway, back to
Ooh.
Sanji. But like you have this, you have Robin wanted to discover all this truths when she was alone and nobody liked her, and then all of her people were taken away. You have
Mhm.
Frankie, who was developing all these ideas for this perfect ship after he lost Tom.
Mhm.
Um, Chopper, who probably wanted to create this all cure once he wasn't able to save Hiruluk.
Right, because the what he thought was the all cures what actually killed
Yeah, his
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 father.
father. Brooks' entire existence
Hmm.
in like his
Yeah.
50 years of suffering to get just back to Laboon. And I
Hmm.
think it's really interesting the way that I sort of, we talked about this a little bit off air, about how the way that these backstories of the main cast all sort of this beautiful way they all rhyme with each other and they all sort of click
Right.
together in this way that all makes sense. I don't know. Oda's just so
Hmm.
good at making these, like, they're not like, I don't know what the word is, like they're not overtly connected to each
Yeah,
other,
yeah, yeah. They're not all like parallels to each
but
other.
they are thematically connected in all these little ways, and I think
Hmm.
it's really compelling, and I think there's a lot of that in Sanji's backstory.
Absolutely.
Um, and I love that, like, even when Sanji is at his lowest, he wants to be a cook. Like Reiju is
Yep.
trying to free him, and he says, "Reiju, I want to be a cook."
Hmm.
And so
We're gonna.
he makes his escape. Do you have anything you want to say on the escape?
I mean, no, but I do have something to say about this scene with Reiju.
Please do.
This one.
Oh, this one, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, oh my God.
In this,
Um,
like what we were just talking about, in the same way that they have, small elements of their backstory that all kind of rhyme with each other. You have this incredible scene of Reiju, finally, dropping the
uh,
act. Um,
yeah, dropping the
you know,
act of
she
this
she's
like tough evil girl. Maybe because she's not being ordered to be. Because I don't
right.
know.
She's
It's not clear
no
when
one's.
they did that to Reiju to make her unable to defy
I
orders.
I don't. I'm a little unsure if that is like a science thing or if that is like a conditioning thing.
I see. Either way,
Either
really
way, no one's
fucked.
around.
Yeah, either
She
way,
is able to.
nobody's around to give her an order, and she's able to drop the act of like the sort of
Mhm.
mean older sister,
Yeah. She says,
and says to
"Get on
Sanji,
that ship right there.
there,
Stop
Sanji,
crying.
stop
You have to
crying.
be a
You have to be a
man.
man. Understand? Don't ever come
Understand."
back here. The sea's a huge place. Someday, you'll find people who are good to you.
And it is the exact same sentiment that Saul imparted onto Robin in her backstory of there are people on this sea who will. God, I'm gonna fucking cry.
Yeah, there are people
They're.
who will love you and be your friend. You just have to find them.
Hmm.
And I
I
think
just
it's
it's.
interesting to me that Sanji has this moment imparted onto him in the opposite of Robin, where this is
Mhm.
like the moment. I mean, Sanji's obviously crying and sad and everything, but this is the greatest moment of hope Sanji has felt in his entire life
Right.
at this point. He is
Yeah.
escaping onto a ship where he can be a cook, and then that will lead to him meeting Zeph.
Mhm.
Robin, on the other hand, is getting that imparted to her when literally everyone she cares about is being literally wiped from existence.
Obliterated. Yeah.
Um, and
It's
then it's just
it's
I don't know. It's
heartbreaking.
it's really heartbreaking. It's really good stuff. I just Sanji is so wonderful in this arc. We get some snippets about Zeph teaching him both of the rules about the hands, not using your hands to
Mhm.
fight, as well as the never kick a woman.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a rule since the age of the dinosaurs, which I really hope. I think the ultimate payoff would be if Drake also has this same rule and that he won't hit a woman because he's a
Yeah.
dinosaur.
Because he's so tired. That'd be so funny.
It'd be so funny. Um,
Um.
yeah,
But
here's
yeah,
the cannon
we
man,
get to
tank
we
man.
get the end of the cracker fight. Don't ban
Yeah.
us, YouTube.
Don't ban us YouTube for saying his name. It's his name. It's like a it's like a
His
it's like a
name.
it's like a Rice crispy cracker. It's like a
um.
Ritz cracker. Trust
Whoa, bro!
me.
Stop saying it.
Stop saying it. Stop saying it. Stop saying it.
Um.
And then we get to it's. I mean, I would say the best moment of this whole section, but having read two volumes past this, I don't even know if that's true anymore.
It's so tough to like nail down what is the best part of
But
this.
one of my absolute favorite moments is this moment of Luffy reuniting with Sanji
Mhm.
and Sanji. I sort of talked about this earlier of Sanji's driving off, like the way that he sort of mirrors Zoro
Mhm.
and driving him off. I hate to move a little ahead, but I want to move to the sort of the end of this fight.
Yeah.
I do,
Mhm.
and I like
It's a
the way
great.
that this is. It's a great fight. I love that it is this opposite to the fight with Usopp,
Yes, I was
where
gonna say the exact
where
same thing.
Luffy was willing to fight Usopp because he knew that Usopp's emotions were real.
Right.
Usopp's conflict and his heartbreak over what was going on with the Mary was real,
Mhm.
and Sanji is not
This
telling
is
the truth.
not.
This is not
This
what
is not
Sanji
what
really
Sanji.
feels, and so
And I
Luffy's
think
not
that
willing to
is
fight back.
something that it has been apparent in Sanji's character this whole time, but becomes like forefront here. Is that Sanji is a character who never says what he actually means.
Yeah,
The things that he says and does are oftentimes exactly contradictory to his actual actions.
yeah.
Like, I mean, not to use, not to be a Sanji defender, but I am gonna be a Sanji defender. Um, in the same way that like in Thriller Bark or not Thriller Bark, Punk Hazard, where he says, I'm gonna take Nami's clothes off and I'm gonna look at her boobs," but he doesn't. He doesn't actually do that.
He didn't have a camera. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
He's
sorry.
he's still he still
This is the
would he
Sanji
still
pro.
would
It's
have.
the pro Sanji arc. I gotta
This is
stop. I can't.
pro
I gotta.
Sanji. He's the like he doesn't say the things that are actually on his mind. He is a very in the background contemplative character, and this is where that comes to a head of
Yeah.
Luffy
This comes
understanding
to a
that,
fall.
knowing Sanji, and being able to tell immediately that Sanji does not mean what he's saying here,
Yeah.
because Luffy is a character who can cut through that and cut to the heart of what someone actually wants and means.
And then we get to one of the single most gut-wrenching
I was
moments.
bawling my fucking eyes out. It was it is it's hard
Yeah.
it is hard to put into
It is hard to
words
put into
the
words
way that it.
the way that this whole scene makes me feel
Mhm.
of just the way of Luffy as Sanji is leaving, head in his hands, tearing up, crying while Luffy is screaming out to him the truth and
Mhm.
the things that Sanji knows to be true and yet is can't say because he doesn't want to endanger Luffy and the rest of the crew because he
Right.
cares so much. But
He is so
unfortunately for
kind.
Sanji, or maybe fortunately for Sanji, he chose Monkey D. Luffy to be his captain.
Mhm.
And Monkey D. Luffy is very bad at taking no for an answer. Um,
Yeah, he's really not big on it.
unless he knows that somebody truly, deeply desires that answer to be no. He is not taking no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And he has some of the best lines I think Luffy has ever delivered.
Yeah.
With stuff like, you can kick me all you want, but you're the one feeling the pain.
Uh,
This voyage
uh.
isn't over yet. I'll be waiting right here. And if you don't come back, I'll just sit here and starve.
Imagine that line, specifically that line, being told to Sanji.
Yeah,
Someone
someone
who knows what
who is
starving feels
starved
like.
and has been ridiculed for cooking his entire life,
Mm-hmm.
having someone who is willing to starve if they cannot eat his food.
Mm-hmm. It's
I won't eat
oh my
anybody's
god.
food but yours anymore. I'll just stand here and starve out in the rain and snow waiting for you to come back. Without your help, I can't become the king of the pirates.
Oh my god.
It's just, I mean,
It's
it's cinema.
so brutal.
It's cinema. And it obviously is a beautiful moment. It's exactly what Sanji needs to hear. And it
Mm-hmm.
calls back to the whole series, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's been, I always mention Arlong Park, but like every beat of this story, we learn that Luffy needs these people. We've seen it in Whole Cake that he needs Sanji even prior to
Mm-hmm.
this moment.
Yeah.
And Luffy, and this is something I have in my notes, is that I think it's easy to take this as Luffy does not think he is capable of becoming the Pirate King without Sanji's help. I think it may even more so than that be that Luffy doesn't want to be the Pirate King without Sanji's help.
Yeah.
I have
Mm-hmm.
in my notes a line that Luffy says back in Sabaody
Mm-hmm.
when they're talking with Rayleigh, and Usopp tries to get the information about the One Piece, and
Right.
Luffy shuts him down, and Luffy says, "I would rather die than go on a boring adventure."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is at least partially what is happening in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think to Luffy, continuing this journey without a member of his crew would make it a boring
He's
adventure, and that is worse than
yeah.
death. And so
He just won't do it.
he is willing to starve. And it's because I think it's easy to see this scene as Luffy like guilting Sanji to come
Mm-hmm.
back, and I think it's decidedly not Luffy's
That.
intention. And we don't get any impression that Sanji takes it that way either, which I am
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of Oda not doing that.
Right.
And that this is just like, this is genuinely Luffy's emotions and feelings, and Luffy is an extreme man to a fault,
Mm-hmm.
and so to prove his feeling, he's willing to starve to show
Right.
like his feeling is so important to him that he would rather starve.
Yeah.
Um,
And
just
I
amazing.
mean, and the emotion on the shot of Sanji's face, just
Just
absolutely
bawling
breaking down at
at
hearing
hearing
this
this, knowing that
is
this man really does believe in him is
mm-hmm.
awesome.
It's incredible.
Um,
It's cinema.
it's cinema. Um,
we move a little ahead
move a little ahead
to
to Pudding's
ah
what seemed to be quite a sweet moment. And depending on how things play out, may turn into a sweet moment retroactively.
mm-hmm.
Um, of her having this nice moment with Sanji as we cut back and forth between Sanji talking with her and Luffy fighting Big Mom's forces by himself while starving.
Yep.
And they propose, or he proposes.
Yeah, he proposes to her.
And it's really sad. No retro. It's
It's
really sad in the moment because Sanji's giving up his
yeah
crew.
on
He's giving up
be
on
on
the things
going
that
back.
he wants to do because he thinks he needs to protect them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's even more sad that it was
After
basically for nothing
you after you learn.
after you learn. And I just sort of want to keep moving a little bit faster here
Yeah, yeah.
because we spent a lot of time on a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
We get introduced to Smoothie. That's really all I
God,
have to say about
God, she's
Smoothie.
hot.
Um, goddamn, that's all I got to say about it. And then I guess we talk about Brook,
Yay!
my man, the Soul
I'll let
King.
I'll let you take this one, take point on this one.
So, despite the last two recordings, I don't have too much to talk about with Brook this time.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he had some of my absolute favorite moments in this arc,
Mm-hmm.
um, I want to move to. Obviously, there's this whole scene with these two. I want to talk about Brook first. So I want to find this scene with Brook if I can find it. Yeah, here we are. Where is? No, I want to see what he says. Oh, it's in the next volume. This game just so sucks. I want to find the moment when he confronts Big Mom because that's the line that I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Anyways, so Brook is like very interesting in this section. I like that we sort of get a moment that really shows that Brook is. Did I just skip past it? Where is this moment? Where is my boy Brook? Okay, but Brook goes and he sort of locks in this section, which I really like. I love seeing Brook get to lock in
Mm-hmm.
because I think another thing that's sort of important about this moment to me is that Brook has not been part of the crew for very long.
Yeah. He knew
Brook
them for like a
oh,
few days
do
on the
them
way
for
to Sabaody.
maybe a week up to time skip before being separated for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then Dressrosa to the end of Dressrosa was like 3 days, and he wasn't even there for Dressrosa.
Right.
Then he was with just part of the crew for a couple of weeks, where he lost
Mm-hmm.
Sanji while he was on watch,
Yep.
and then is almost not brought along on this mission because they're like, oh yeah, you want to sing your silly songs? Okay, we get it, Brook. But like, I think this is a moment that I think is really interesting because I feel like to the audience, this is sort of a moment of like proving that Brook is capable.
Right. Yeah.
But
It
I
is the
don't believe that this is a moment that is proving Brook is capable to the crew because I
no.
don't think they
This
don't
is for the
care.
power scalers.
This is for the power scalers, but I think it's interesting. I think it may be for Brook a moment of proving his worth, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that the rest of the crew needs him to.
No, absolutely not. I
Because
wouldn't.
you
I
look
don't think
at
they would ever think
when
that.
they save Brook, because I guess he gets captured. Spoilers, but he gets captured, and when they save him, they're just happy they got Brook back. They're not even worried
Right.
that he wasn't able to get the poneglyphs. They're
Yeah.
like, thank God you weren't killed, Brook. We're so
Mm-hmm.
glad that you're safe.
Yep.
And I love just Brook is so interesting. He has a moment where he's talking with Pedro about Sanji,
Uh,
and he's like, "Yeah, I knew this was gonna happen."
and when he talks to Big Mom.
Yeah, and when he talks to Big Mom, I wish I knew where these moments were. I can't find them, man. But he has a moment where he's like, "Yeah, I knew that this was what was gonna happen with Sanji because I know
Right.
that Sanji is caring to his own detriment."
Yeah.
Because as
He
mentioned
is.
many a time now, Brook was one of the only two people to witness the nothing happens moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brook is keenly aware of sort of the hidden interior of both Zoro and Sanji.
Right.
And Brook is a character, I think I mentioned this last time in Zo, that cares or not cares but is so attentive to the emotions and the feelings of the rest of the crew.
Yes.
And that is what
He.
makes him so valuable and so important to the rest of the crew being able to function.
Right. The
And it
moment in
is
Zoe that made you cry,
that made you
where
cry that was a page
yeah,
of a
where
gag.
Brooke is trying to just lift the spirits of the crew in any way
Crew
he
in any way he
can,
can. And
and
so
it.
in this moment, he's like, all right, I knew what Sanji was going to do. I knew what Luffy was going to do. So I have to do what I have to do.
Yep. I have
Because
to do what
they're
only
not,
I
I
can
know to
do.
do what only I can do. Which is go in there and show them why you're the goddamn Soul King.
And Brooke locks the fuck in
Brook locks the
with it
fuck
with
in.
for because for some reason Brooke's soul power with the revive fruit seems to be like a natural counter to
Natural
Big
counter to
Mom's
Big
fruit.
Mom's power. Presumably because he's dead. Yo ho 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 ho.
I
Um,
mean, he's manipulation of his own soul, which I guess
is
gives him.
some sort of power. But I think
Hmm.
it's he's almost doing his like own sort of soul-based conquerors hockey to the pawns
Yeah, right.
because these guys are all they're basically homies, right?
Hmm.
They're
The
all
chess
like
peacekeepers, that's what they're called.
the chess peacekeepers.
I knew it
They're
was a
all
clever
like
pun.
basically homies. They're like these little fake guys with little tiny pieces of soul in them, But
Hmm.
Brook's soul and his music is so overwhelming and shocking to your system
Hmm.
that these small bits of soul that Big Mom is like haphazardly controlling cannot withstand the presence of the Soul
The
King.
presence of the Soul King.
Um, as he says in the anime, which is a line that I really liked, he says, "When you hear it, my soul knocks you to the floor,"
Hmm.
which I think is awesome.
It's
And I
hard.
think it really is almost like this music-based Conquerors hockey of like
Yeah.
even back at his concert in Saba Odi, people were passing out
Right. Yeah.
before he even started playing. Like his soul, his the power of his soul, which channels through his music, is so overbearing. And he has the really cool moment with Big Mom that I wanted to pull
Uh-huh.
up,
I
where
mean, this is a fan favorite. This is a famous moment.
this is I assume a fan favorite moment, easily one of my favorite moments in this section. If
Hmm.
I could find it, because I want to read exactly what he says, but I'm probably not going to find it at this rate. Here we go. I think we're all, no, where is it? I genuinely have
No.
no clue where it disappears to. This
there's
happens
there's a lot
every time.
of
There's a lot of stuff that
bouncing
happens in
around.
this arc. There's a lot of bouncing around. But like this is already past him getting captured. When does this happen? Am I crazy? I feel like I'm going mad. I'm
I don't know,
sorry.
but I mean,
I'm sorry, folks. But he has this moment where he's like, "Well, I planned for the worst case scenario,"
yeah. And
and he
Big
says
Mom says
this
the worst case scenario.
scenario.
Did it
Um,
ever occur to you that everyone might die?
die.
And what does he say?
I find it. I want to read exactly what he says because it's such a
Okay.
cool line. I
Well,
don't want to
try to
ruin it.
find the quote. Find the quote.
Find the quote. Here we go. I finally found it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, he has this moment. This is where he talks about Sanji too. He talks about Sanji to Big Mom.
Yeah.
I just want to sort of cover this whole moment. That's right. The thing
Yeah.
about Sanji is he's very kind-hearted. So I knew that he would not return to us, no matter what trap it is you set for him. His kindness knows no bounds. Once he's made up his mind to sacrifice himself for someone, he will not change his ways. Which, it's so beautiful seeing Brook, who's had such a little amount of time. Like I think it really sells how much Brook gets people, which I think is interesting
Hmm.
for a guy who
Who
didn't
spent
see a
50
person for
years?
50 years.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why. Like he's spent so long alone that now that he has people,
Hmm.
he wants to know everything about them so that he does not lose them
Hmm.
again.
Yeah. I like that.
And so he has these moments where he literally, like as I was saying earlier, he explains that he understood Sanji and Luffy to the point that he knew everything that was going to happen, and he was right.
Hmm.
And our
Yep.
captain, meanwhile, is a man who always trusts in his own beliefs when he acts. So whatever happens will be decided by them. Um,
Mhm.
and so she sort of makes fun of Brooke. So you've got nothing better to do then? Not quite. I am doing it so that if in the worst case scenario Sanji does not return with us, he will not need to kick himself for bringing us here, because we have
Right.
gained something tremendous for our trouble. And then,
Ooh.
she laughs at him. That worst case scenario you rather envision is rather tame. Sanji not returning, that's the worst thing you can imagine? Everybody dies? One might die. Young lady, what kind of idiot draws up plans with the expectation of dying? Damn, he's so cool, man.
Ah,
Oh,
he's
I
so fucking
love Brook.
sick.
I fucking love Brook. I love this moment. I love because it's like, and it's this extension of where Brook has been. Is
Right.
like Brook has literally experienced everyone dying,
Dying.
including himself. Like the whole
Uh-huh.
crew, he has experienced that quote unquote worst case scenario, and so he
Already.
knows that there is no reason to plan for that
Hmm.
because if it happens, it happens. Like
Right.
there's no reason
There's
to
nothing you can
plan.
do.
There's nothing to plan about being dead. Which I love the way that Oda keeps coming up with interesting and new ways to explore death through the lens of Brook.
Yeah.
And this is not a direction I ever saw coming of like, why plan for death? There's no point. It's
Hmm.
just death is death. You leave nothing behind, as he said
Yeah.
back in Fishman Island.
Hmm.
I just love Brook. I wish I had more to talk about with Brook. I also love that even though he clashes with Big Mom, he
Big
makes it out
Mom.
alive on account of the fact that he's a weirdo, and she's
Yeah.
fascinated by weirdos. But is presumably immune to her powers, so he couldn't get his soul manipulated by her.
Hmm.
I guess she can't take years off his life because he doesn't have any to give. But on top of that, he accomplishes his goal to a T.
Yep, he
Not
gets the
even
fucking
just
poneglyph.
he gets the fucking poneglyphs, not even just the road poneglyph, but the other two
All
as
of
well.
them.
He gets all three of them. That's my goat. I love Brook. I love Brook really locked in, and I'm super excited to see more of him in the rest of this arc because I feel like he's going to have more to do. I hope.
Yeah. Brook
Because
kind of
we've
the
got
MVP of this arc.
Brook's kind of MVPing. It's weird because Brook is kind of playing the role that Sanji usually fills.
Normally filled, yes.
And then like Sanji cannot fulfill that role because of the extenuating circumstances.
Right.
So when there is no first mate and there is no chef to lock in and be the backbone of this crew, when Luffy is preoccupied with something else, you got to leave it to the old man.
Yep.
Give it to the skeleton because he's seen it all and
Love
maybe
this shit
nothing.
so much.
I love him. I love Brook. I love this cast so much, especially Brook. Brook is always bringing a smile to my face.
Absolutely.
And then we sort of
And
move
then
into the twist, I think,
uh-huh.
as
This is where
while Luffy. So I guess we kind of skip past Luffy and Nami get captured. I think
yeah,
there's more to say when they get
they
freed.
get put into the book,
They get put into
which
book
I think
jail.
is yeah.
And Pudding comes to them and has this tearful whisper that we don't get to hear. That
Enrages Luffy.
pisses
Whatever she
Luffy
says.
off. Whatever the hell she just said pisses Luffy off, and she leaves in tears. And you know me, simple-minded reader that I was like, oh, she probably just told them that she's gonna sacrifice herself to Big Mom, and Luffy doesn't want her to do that. No, she's just a piece of
No.
shit. Although maybe not as
Although maybe
bad
not.
as maybe not as bad as she seems.
And
Also,
we
I will say I want to quickly mention that Chopper happens.
yeah,
I
Chopper
don't
gets a
know.
little fight
Chopper gets a little
against
fight. Chopper doesn't get to do
Relay.
much in this arc. I feel like Chopper may have more to do later. I don't know. Chopper feels like he's a very understated role, but I think he's very important in this section.
And I mean I do love the dynamic between Chopper and Carrot. I
Yeah,
think they're a
Chopper
fun
and Carrot
team.
are very funny because they're both like naive kids,
Yeah.
but in like different ways, and it's fun to see Chopper be like the experienced one.
Right. To be the big brother.
It's fun to see Chopper be the big brother to somebody who's just like Chopper. And he does, Chopper does secure our transportation through the mirror dimension, so it's not like
Absolutely,
Chopper
yeah.
is slouching at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he plays a very understated role, which is fine, because Chopper has been pretty great in time skip, I think, more than most of the cast has had a lot to do. He had a lot of great moments in Fishman Island. He made Punk Hazard for me. He's great in Zoe. He's been like a really big part of all the connecting pieces and not really any of the big pieces.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fairly fitting role for Chopper to be the center and be the heart of the conversation when everybody else needs their rest and recuperation.
Yeah.
And then it's Chopper's turn to step up and be the doctor while everybody else needs to rest. Which I think is a fun sort of balancing act for Chopper. But he's very fun in this section. He gets to just sort of be a funny, silly guy. We also learn a bit about Pedro's backstory.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Sort of gives us a better idea of what Big Mom is like and what she's capable of. And holy shit, she's scary.
Yeah.
That's really the most I have to say about Pedro, is that I think she's scary. I'm interested to see, because I don't know, Pedro just feels, I don't know, it's not that he feels pointless, that's not what I want to say, but I feel like there's so much going on that Pedro sort of fades into the background.
Right.
But he doesn't fade into the background in the same way that Chopper or Brook do, because like we already have so much of a connection with Chopper and Brook. So he just sort of ends up feeling like a loose background element that's here to tie and sort of introduce some of the threat of Big Mom. So I'm interested to see where else he goes, because I feel like there's got to be some big moment for Pedro. I think Pedro is going to have a big moment.
Yeah.
That is a capstone for his little mini arc about and maybe I don't know what he exactly is going to represent, but I think what he's going to represent will be really interesting to look back on the arc with the perspective of Pedro as a character.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like what Big Mom stealing lives can look like, and
Mhm.
Pedro serves as sort of an example of Big Mom's cruelty.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then
Interesting
we get
theory.
into Ray of
Ah.
Light,
Ah.
which is one of the most just absolutely
Just
devastating,
brutal chapters
heartbreakingly
of this whole
brutal moments.
story.
Luffy is so angry, he's trying to rip his
Rip
hands
his
off
arms off.
so that he could
In
go.
almost like like a Zoro moment back in little
Yeah,
garden.
in Little Garden, but not played for jokes. Like Luffy
No, this is serious.
is deadly
He is
serious.
going to rip his arms off.
Yeah, that's the point. I'd rather lose my arms than be dead.
Hmm.
Yeah, we sit here wondering who's gonna save us. We're losing everything.
Yeah.
Um, and it's crazy. And so Sanji prepares a little meal. He prepares a nice meal. I think he even has a moment where he's like, "What am I doing? I made all the crew's favorites. These portions
Hmm.
are way too big for her. She's not gonna be able to eat all this." And so he looks through the window as he's talking with his sister, and he's like, "Oh, good, she's laughing."
Ah,
And it is revealed that Pudding is
sucks.
awful, evil, evil
Evil,
lady,
evil, evil lady.
evil
Bad,
lady,
bad, bad evil
bad,
lady.
bad, evil lady who, on by order of Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom, basically is marrying Sanji to humiliate him and kill his entire family.
Uh-huh.
And that she thinks of him as a stupid thug and a waste of space.
Yeah.
And this pisses Luffy off to no
This is
end.
what he told Luffy
She
in
told
when
Luffy,
that,
and
and
then
you just see
this
Sanji standing
Sanji just
outside the window.
breaks down. And not even like in the way that he was before, just in that he stops.
Like he's numb. Like
He's
it's
numb. His
his what he thought was gonna be his one respite in
this in this
this awful
hell has
situation.
also turned out to be hell, and he's just given
Hmm.
up his captain to get it,
Yeah.
to get this one
You
ray of hope, and now even that ray of hope was a lie, and he who knows what's happened to his captain.
right. You see his eyes completely sunken into his face
Yeah, like he's
as he's listening to his fiance say that she's going to kill him
yeah going to kill him,
and his
dyed
whole
red with blood.
blood family.
Yeah, and the way that she laughs about what kind of face he's gonna make when she reveals it to him.
Hmm.
And the part that really gets me is him trying to light the cigarette in the rain
Uh-huh. We should.
after
I should. I gotta go back and have you watch this in the anime because this is a great
I
scene in the
probably
anime.
should. I feel like the sound effects of the rain during this whole section would probably be really
Hmm.
impactful. The way he's dropped the food basket and the
Yeah.
bouquet and is just trying to light a cigarette and it just won't
It
work.
just won't because there's gross syrup rain in
There's
his
gross
lantern.
syrup rain. I
I
also
it's it takes me out of it just a tiny bit every time I remember that it's syrup raining from the sky and not rain
yeah.
because it's
Um,
so much worse.
I also, and this is a one last talk on Brook. I think it's really powerful that this is when Brook's thing comes into play. It's when
Mhm.
Sanji's at his lowest that Brook tells us, the audience,
Oh
that
yes,
his
yes.
kindness
That.
knows no bounds.
Hmm.
I think is very moving, heartbreaking a little bit, of course.
Uh-huh.
We learned that Pudding also has the memo fruit
Yeah,
and
she
can
can
manipulate
steal
people's
people's
memories
memories, edit them like it's film.
like it's film, which is freaky.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then Luffy is trying as hard as he can to get out as
Yeah.
the stupid cream guy starts threatening to torture Nami, which makes Luffy even angrier.
Hmm.
And then my goat, Jinbei.
Jinbei, first
Jinbei is
sight of the
back,
sea.
baby. Bursts
First
onto
sight
the
of the sea.
scene here to rescue his captain.
I love it so
I
much.
fucking love Jinbei. I am so excited for Jinbei to officially join the
Hmm.
crew, even though
Oh my
he's
god.
basically already been a crew member in my heart ever since Fishman Island.
Right.
Um, And he fits. It's crazy how well he fits into all this because I feel like it's
Right.
so hard to add another character into this group.
Hmm.
And it's not that like, because I feel like there's at least prior to me reading One Piece, I had understood the sentiment that a lot of people struggled with Jinbei as a crew member because it feels like there's just been so much time without him as a crew member.
Yeah.
But at least for me, I mean, obviously I haven't gotten to when Jinbei joins the crew, so maybe by the time he actually officially joins the crew, I will feel this way. I don't get that impression personally with Jinbei
Me neither. I
because
don't.
I feel like
He's always felt. He just has the same sort of vibe as the crew, and kind of always has.
yeah, like
Like
ever
Jinbei
since
is a character who we've known
we've known him since
since
Impel Down,
Impel Down.
and like
Like, yeah, we've
he
known
has
everyone else
been
longer, but not like that much longer than Brooke.
yeah, like we met Brook not that much. We've actually had probably more time with Jinbei than with Brook.
Probably, yeah.
We had what, 3 arcs with Jinbei? We had one with Brook
Hmm.
before we reunited with Brook and Saba Odi. And then Brook
Right.
wasn't around for Dressrosa, and neither was Jinbei.
Hmm.
So like Jinbei has had around as much screen time as Brook, just hasn't been officially a member of the crew for all that time.
Right.
But the way, I don't know, I mentioned it earlier, the way he is this sort of rock for Luffy. And I think that a part of
Hmm.
that, and this is something that I was sort of thinking about last night, was the way that the influence of certain characters, and this is a thing present throughout all of One Piece, is this like passing on of will,
Of course, yeah.
is you have even now cascading all the way into the new world is the will of Ace.
Yeah.
Because without Ace, you don't have Luffy leveling up and getting the crew to wait. You don't have
Hmm.
Jinbei rejecting the warlords and rejecting Big Mom. You don't have Luffy aligning himself with Law and taking down
Right.
like Dressrosa and freeing the toys and like all of that. You don't have Sabo showing up and helping complete that mission. Like you don't have any of this without the
Without
influence
Jinbei.
of without Jinbei first of all, and without Ace pushing Jinbei out of his despair.
Right.
Just to like pushing Jinbei out of his despair long enough to help his brother, and then finding that light, that sun that he once had
Uh,
in Luffy,
yeah.
which I think is really, really interesting and really compelling, and I really like Jinbei a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm just so excited to see more
I'm
of him.
so
He's a
I
fun
love
guy.
Jinbei
I
in
quite
this
love
arc.
Jinbei. He's really great in this arc.
Yeah.
I love that he gets to be sort of a rock for the crew,
Hmm.
especially in this arc when there's so much turmoil for the lot of them.
Yeah.
And then we get
Um.
Sanji's conversation with Reiju, where we learn a lot of things about Reiju. First of all, we sort of get the way that it's described about him, her not having the memories. I guess
Mhm.
the sort of the rest of the Jinbei stuff happens first. Jinbei frees
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
which is cool. Nami gets a cool outfit. I like this like jumper, like Mario plumber overalls that she's wearing. I think is
Yeah.
actually kind of a nice look for Nami. I like it.
Hmm.
Um, and then
Um.
Luffy's like really starting to get affected by the not eating anything thing
Uh-huh. Which is crazy because he, as established earlier, he ate crackers for 11
for
hours.
11 hours straight. To be fair, he used all that energy to launch Cracker halfway
Ye-
or more across the
Yeah.
country.
Um.
And so Sanji is having this conversation with Reiju, and he's just breaking down.
Hmm. With the only member of his family who he really
Who he can
has
trust,
any sort of relationship
relationship
with.
with.
Like, at this point, Reiju is kind of all he has.
Yeah,
Like, he thinks that Luffy is gone.
he thinks that
He
Luffy's
th-
gone.
he knows that Pudding hates him. He knows that all the rest of his family and Big
Weird.
Mom's family.
Yeah,
Reiju is the only person who Sanji has in this moment,
yeah,
and he's now like confiding in his big sister about what is gonna happen, how he found out that her memories have been,
yeah. Her
manipulated.
memories have been manipulated, and it's crazy. I think the scariest part is the way that learning her memories have been manipulated doesn't even phase her.
Yeah.
Cause like you could, and it's sort of that tied with like I think in this section is when she reveals that later on, like where is it after she, I mean, I will get to the thing, I guess. Where is the thing that she says about herself? Yeah, I still have my emotions, but father had me augmented into an accomplice who cannot disobey his orders. My hands are stained with blood. I deserve death. In that, like, she has been conditioned and forced to be this, like, killing machine for
This
Judge,
weapon.
and so she doesn't even care. She's like,
Yeah.
so what? I don't care that my leg is injured, that my memories have been wiped. It's like what I deserve. It's what I've been
Hmm.
made into. And the
And
fact that
she
she's like,
accepts that the Germa people are going to be slaughtered.
yeah, she accepts that the German people are going to be slaughtered, and she accepts that she is evil and complicit in that, even
Hmm.
though, as far as we can tell, she has had no autonomy whatsoever.
Right.
And I think that is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I really like Reiju. I'm really excited to see how she plays out in the rest of the arc.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm scared of having like a moment similar to the end of Dressrosa with her, where she is given an order by Judge and she cannot refuse it,
Uh,
similar to the Rebecca Viola thing that
hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
And that maybe instead of Luffy stepping in, or maybe Luffy will be the one to step in again, or maybe Sanji steps in
Yeah.
some way. Although I'm imagining it in my head maybe of Judge trying to get her to kill Sanji. But
Right.
this is also where we learn the last little bit about Sanji's backstory,
Hmm.
about how um, his mother Sora desperately didn't want her kids to be like this, and so she gave herself this like poison medicine or something
Hmm.
to stop the effects, but it
The
only
effects of whatever augmentations
they were
Judge wanted to make to
doing
the
on the
children.
children, but it only worked on one of them, Sanji.
Yeah.
And then as a
Maybe.
result of taking, maybe, presumably, um,
I think that there's a little bit more to it.
I would imagine, especially with what I was saying about the Diablo Jam thing earlier,
Hmm.
of like maybe he is different, but not in the way that they are different,
Yeah.
like
And
manipulated in some other
I
way.
also think that they aren't quite the emotionless killing machines that Judge
The
wanted.
judge thinks they are, or wants them to be.
Because if you go back to what I made you point out, or I made you freeze on during the live read,
Of Yonji feeding a
why
bear.
would Yonji pick a berry for this weird little bear creature if
I
he
don't
was
know. It's a wedding.
truly an emotionless killing machine who doesn't give a shit about anyone
Yeah.
else? So I think that there is some little bit of their emotions still intact.
Yeah.
Um, but
Uh,
we will see.
we will see. I'll have more to say on that once I've seen the whole arc. And I think another heartbreaking moment in this is that Sanji initially is immediately ready to blame himself for his mother's death
Yeah.
because and immediately Reiju's like, no,
Hmm.
no, you don't do that. And it's once again what Brooke was saying. Like this kid is so kind, he cares so much, and he's such a self-sacrificer that he is willing to retroactively place the blame on himself
Uh-huh.
for his mother's death, even though I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can really argue that it was anybody other than Judge's fault,
No, it was Judge's fault.
you know. But like Sanji is not willing to put that blame on other people
Hmm.
unless he's, tongue in cheek making fun of people he actually cares about,
Exactly.
which is something I had in my notes that I was going to talk about way earlier, but I want to briefly mention it now about Sanji's tough love.
Hmm.
And I don't know where it really originates from. I'm guessing it probably originates from Zeph, because he seems to be a bit more of a soft boy with his mom.
Yeah.
Um, but you get
Of
this way that
Sanji
Sanji
was taught to show love.
love through by Zeph, who was the first person who actually loved him.
Hmm.
And so his love is this tough, rough, sort of mean exterior because that's where he actually experienced love is in that playful, mean way that he is with the cooks, that he is with the
Hmm.
newcomer people,
Right.
that he is with Zoro, that he is with the rest of the crew that aren't the girlies, you
Hmm.
know? It's just
Yep.
interesting seeing Sanji's character so thoroughly dissected throughout this whole arc.
Exactly. You get reasonings and the whole picture of why Sanji has always been the way he is.
Yeah. Um,
And
and
you get then Reiju saying at
Reiji
the bottom of
saying,
the
"It's
page,
why you were born kindler and gentler than anyone." once again mirroring
Uh,
back to what Brooks said about Sanji. Like
yep.
there are people, remember back to what Reggie said, there are people that care about Sanji and they know what
Hmm.
he's like.
Yeah. Even if even I mean,
Even if Sanji
Reiju
doesn't think they do.
herself is someone who cares for Sanji and can see who Sanji really is.
Yeah.
She just couldn't do anything in the situation she was in because of the way that Judge ruled his family.
Yeah.
It's just
Um,
heartbreaking.
and then another great moment, Luffy gets pulled in by Reiju. Reiju lets him
Hmm.
know that Sanji knows the truth. And Luffy's like, "Great. If he's not being tricked, I've done everything I can. Thanks." And then he leaves because
Jumps out a window
he
again.
jumps out a
He loves
window.
doing that.
I made him a promise, but it's not here.
Ah,
Because you think that he's gonna go get Sanji now that he knows that Pudding is lying to him. But if he knows that Sanji knows, then it's Sanji's decision to make. Either Sanji
hmm.
goes and he leaves Luffy behind, or he comes back.
Yep.
And so Luffy goes through what turns out to be like a decent force of Big Mom's army, half dead,
Uh-huh.
starving,
Yeah.
just to get back to the
Just
spot that he said that he would meet
he
Sanji.
said he would wait for Sanji.
Um, Meanwhile, Jinbei and Nami are moving through, and they collect back with the crew. They go to save Brook, and Jinbei sort of explains a bit of the plan to
Hmm.
them, but not to Luffy. We get more of the plan a little bit later. Um, and Sanji is just there with his food basket, and this little shit, whoever his name is, tries to take the food,
And
and
Sanji
Sanji
gets
cracks. He says, "Let
he
go of that.
cracks.
That meat doesn't belong to you." And at this moment, he's back.
Yep.
It's like it's the final push that he needed.
Of someone, and it always comes back to food.
Always comes back to food. Somebody trying to waste the food that he made for someone.
That he
Um,
made for the crew,
and
even if
then
it
he
wasn't
made for the crew, even if it
intentional.
wasn't intentional. And this random Big Mom thug is like, what are you doing here? He's like, yeah, what am I doing?
I gotta go.
I gotta go. I got a place to be. And so he takes off, and this
Just
absolutely awesome reflection of what happened with his mother way, way, way back when.
hmm.
He he
The
gets
food gets
rained on.
stepped on,
He gets
rained
stepped on.
on,
It gets mushed
attacked by
together.
a
It gets
dog.
attacked by a dog. And he brings it to someone who's dying. And he gives it to them. And they eat it with a smile and say,
It's
mmm,
so good.
yummy. It's so good. This food's the best.
God damn, dude. It's hard for me to like analyze right now because I feel so much emotion about
Yeah.
this section.
Sorry, this section has been a little bit of just sort of recapping what happens, but a lot of that is sort of what
Yeah.
I'm like in.
Yeah.
And I love this moment where Sanji calls Luffy a liar,
Hmm.
but Luffy's not
He
lying.
knows that the food sucks, or it should at least.
It should at least.
But it
But
doesn't
that's
matter
doesn't
it doesn't
matter to
matter.
Luffy.
It's because someone he
Luffy
cares about made it for
made it
him.
for him that Luffy is going to enjoy it.
Right.
I mean, Luffy enjoyed eating insta-kill poison skin.
Yeah.
The only food that Luffy has not enjoyed has been that one thing that Blackbeard liked way back when, and the food that Luffy made himself.
Yeah.
That's it. Um, and so we get this moment of like Sanji calls Luffy a liar and then goes on this whole tangent about all these conditions.
Hmm.
And Luffy's like,
And I
Luffy
love
basically turns it in his face and he says, he basically calls him the liar. Tell me
right.
how you really feel. And as all the different memories flash in Sanji's head of the
He
crew,
breaks
he
down one more
breaks
time
down
and
one
says,
last
"I
time.
want to go back to the sunny."
I want to go back to the sunny. And is
And Luffy
crying,
says, "Yeah,
but
of
he just
course."
I don't have the guts to run away. I can't stop this by myself. And Luffy's like, yeah, of course you want to help him. That's who you are. But it's okay. You've got us. Let's crash this wedding.
And I love that this I love the way that this mirrors the conflict between Luffy and Usopp
Exactly. It's
in
like the
in
the the
Water
perfect
7
mirror of the Water 7
because
conflict.
obviously Sanji was there. He saw everything that happened. And so you know that Sanji is doing all these things because he wants it to look the same. Like he wants he like he's the
He
one
wants to
in
have that.
Water 7 who tells Luffy that, Zoro's right. If he disrespects the captain, he can't come back.
Yeah,
And so he does the
things
things
that disrespect the
that
captain. Like he's trying to recreate what Usopp did to get himself out of the crew so that he doesn't
right
have to
because he
feel
because he
guilty
he
about being attached to
wants
Luffy.
because he wants to get Luffy out. He wants,
Yeah, he
and
wants Luffy
also
to be safe. He
also
wants
this it's
Luffy
the
to accept
same.
it.
It's a combination of the Usopp and Robin thing because he's doing all this for the sake of Luffy to get him
Yeah,
out of this island
exactly.
safely. And so he's lying and doing all these things that he thinks will work, but Luffy is able to immediately see through it all and see to the heart of Sanji and know what he really wants.
Yeah. And I think potentially continuing that even more interesting is the way that there is a mirror between how Sanji reconciles with the crew and Usopp does.
Yeah.
Because Sanji reconciles with the crew by stopping his lies.
Mhm.
He tells Luffy the truth. And Usopp reconciles and comes back to the crew by lying,
Yeah.
by putting on the mask, becoming the Sniper King, shooting down the flag, and doing what only he can do, which is to
Mhm.
lie. Whereas Sanji, he can't lie. None of them
No.
can. Not like Usopp can.
Sanji can't lie.
He can cook.
Yeah.
And that's what he just did to
And
save
he's
Luffy's life.
cooking.
And he's cooking. It's such a beautiful moment.
It's so good.
The way it mirrors all these other, so many elements throughout the whole rest of the story is just so
Mhm.
incredible. I wish I had more like in-depth thought to say on it. I'm sure I'll have more analytical things to say in the second part.
Right. Once the arc is over.
And I love the rest of the crew is exactly like Luffy in this moment. They're all like, "Thank God Sanji's coming back.
Right. They're like, we were so
We were
worried.
so worried about you. We heard you had a huge fight with Luffy, and we were so worried."
Mhm.
Um, and I
Obviously,
love
we
that
get we get
that
that we get this little moment of Nami being like, I'm never gonna forgive you.
you, but I can forget about it because right now we got more important things, and we're not leaving without you, Sanji.
Mhm.
Um, and we know that Sanji's back because he starts, you know,
Doing
doing
the
doing the
Sanji bit.
Sanji thing for over Nami.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, I think I, I
Uh,
I think that's most of what I feel like I wanted to say about
that's
Sanji.
that's most of what's going on with Sanji. Then we sort of move into the deal with Beshi. There's not too much left of the plot here.
No.
We get sort of
We
Beshi's
we
whole
get
big plan,
yeah.
um,
Um.
which is really
The
an interesting plan that definitely is not going to go awry at all.
not at all.
Um,
Monkey D. Luffy famous for sticking to plans and having and completing them
yeah.
to the letter.
But I'm just
We
sort of
we do meet all of these new underworld
yeah,
figures.
underworld figures who I presume are
Um,
maybe some of the people watching those presentations from Caesar
yeah.
back in Punk Hazard.
Um, the one that I care about here, who I popped off for in the live read, is my boy Big News Morgan.
Big
I don't know
news.
what it is about him, but I immediately and forever have always just loved this fucking albatross man.
Big
I
news.
think he's big news. He is genuinely one of the most important figures in this world. As the person who runs the newspaper, he is the vehicle for which all of the bounties and the propaganda that the Marines put out is, funneled through. And I am just so interested in the man who Big News Morgan is.
Very
But
interesting.
that's
I
all.
don't know.
We we just see him. We just see him for the first time here.
Yeah, we see him for the first time here. We don't get a lot of any of these guys. And
No.
of all the new characters introduced here at the very end of this section, he's not the one I'm most interested in.
Oh
The one
well.
I'm most interested in is probably the most obvious one to say, but it's Charlotte Katakuri.
Ooh.
I am fascinated by this character, and I've known him for like 2 chapters or some shit.
Yeah.
Cause he is so
He is
different.
the antithesis of everything that the Charlotte family has been portrayed as.
Yeah, he is
He is
not
not silly, he is not
this.
goofy.
He's not a
His
silly,
outfit
goofy
is
gumdrop
dark
man. He's wearing a dark outfit. He's got studs and spikes. He's got like
and this crazy scarf thing.
crazy scarf thing. He's got crazy
Tattoos.
tattoos with like a skull on his arm. He's got the spurs on his shoes. He's got the
Mm-hmm.
heels on his like black leather boots that
Boots.
transform into his pants.
I have to imagine that they are one object.
It could
He
be.
it's just
I think it's more of a Jotaro thing where it's like where do the boots end and the pants begin, or the other way
yeah,
around.
right.
Like where does one start and the other stop?
Um
I don't know. He is so immediately compelling because he is
yeah.
so
I mean
instantly different.
yeah, exactly. He is immediately seen as the odd man out.
He is a stark,
And
and he
we
is the I believe this is the highest. Is this the highest bounty we've seen on anybody that we've been told a bounty of?
yeah, that we've been told.
Because we
I
don't
think that
know any of the
it's
Emperor's bounties, I don't think.
yeah.
But
Um
one is the first one we've seen over 1 billion.
yeah. With the 1 billion berry 1,570 or 57 million, sorry.
Yeah.
He is said to have observation hockey so powerful that he
That
can
he can
see
see
the
the
future.
future, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think even more interesting, the way that he sort of wraps back around into being silly is that he has
Yeah.
jelly beans that he's using
Yeah,
to
he's
like
like
snipe.
flicking jelly beans at like bullets at
He's
people.
like he's doing the thing that Jotaro and Josuke do in part 4 of JoJo, where they use their stands to flick bullets so fast that they become live bullets. But he's doing it with jelly beans,
Yeah.
and it's like what is this guy's deal? He's so I don't know. He just like is immediately
He really
compelling.
is just a JoJo character.
He really
And
does,
he's
and he's voiced
and
by
he's
Joseph
voiced by
Joestar, the guy who can predict the future.
yeah, literally he does the bit.
He does. I
I
like
wouldn't be surprised if this was intentional on his part now that I'm
on his
thinking about
part
it.
to get Joseph's actor cast for Charlotte Katakuri.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, we should get the guy who could see the future voiced by the next thing you'll say is guy.
Right.
And he even kind of does that here with Capone. He goes, and now
Yeah.
you'll say, all right, we'll do. And then he says, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. I think I am so interested to see more of this guy because he just like immediately is interesting to me. Because not
Uh-huh.
only, I mean, he's kind of just an antithesis to One Piece's aesthetic as a whole.
Right.
One
Yeah.
Piece characters don't look like this.
No. And the few that do are like the like this is he looks almost like Magellan in
Yeah,
Impel Down is
Magellan is like
like the
also similarly off of this style.
yeah,
But Magellan's like a different style than Katakuri is going for, but it's still like the
but the
same
same
like
sort of
jarring of
vibe
like what the
with
hell?
the all black
The like
fit.
yeah, I imagine in the black and white this guy looks insane.
Oh yeah.
Cuz I feel like so much of this arc, especially with like the giant candy escalator is all such bright colors, and then this guy is
Boom. And then
dark,
he's
scary,
so
has jelly
separate.
beans. I'm just immediately interested by this guy's ability to see the future.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I have known of this character's existence from before starting One Piece. I know very
Mhm.
little about him other than that he exists. I knew that he
Um
could do something related to the future. That's all I knew. And then I knew he was voiced by Joseph Joestar.
I
Um,
will tell you I have told you before that of the non Straw Hat characters and excluding Bellamy because he's a special case. My ranking for like favorite non Straw Hat characters is Garp, and then you didn't know who number 2 was.
that's true.
Charlotte
That's not.
Katakuri is number 2.
Oh shit. Now I'm even more excited for this character. I just think like immediately there's something so interesting about this character. Because Oda doesn't draw characters like this.
Right.
And the fact that he's introducing this character in this setting and in this
Right.
part of this setting, like this timing, is so very interesting.
It's so interesting.
Um,
I think the last thing that I really want to talk about is the the
the sort
final
of
bit
like
with Sanji and
the final
Pudding.
two moments with Sanji and Pudding, and
Yeah.
then the Luffy moment.
Mm-hmm. A lot of this is just like
Because
party stuff,
yeah, a
blah blah
lot of it's
blah. We
party
get.
stuff, and then we get the vows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and right as everything is about to go down, we've got three different plans that are about to all start at the same time from three different factions,
Mm-hmm.
and we get a shot of Katakuri in the background, getting a vision of the future and seeing something that doesn't match any of them.
Right.
Which immediately you're like,
None of
what?
this.
You're like,
This was in none of our plans.
this was in nobody.
Why is
Nobody's
Pudding on
putting.
the
Why
ground?
is Pudding on the ground crying? That's not anybody's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And even like Katakuri is like, that's what's about to happen. What happens,
Oh.
Pudding? Why will you fall to the ground? And so she tries to have her big moment with Sanji to scare him, and sincerely, genuinely, Sanji says, "What a beautiful eye."
I want everyone to know that I was reading this along with him, and he tried to do this in the like annoying Sanji bit voice, and I made him reread it.
In my defense, all the previous scenes in this section, he was doing that. Okay,
Yeah,
my
I
mind was
know.
already there, and there's a big thing that says "gulp" with a heart on it. Okay, I'm sorry. That's where my mind was. That was the tone I was in,
and and immediately, Pudding starts crying,
like bawling,
bawling her eyes out of like,
breaks down
what did he just say? And you get these little flashes to Lin
to
Lin,
her.
be like, you're a freaky monster.
Yeah,
You're
and
you're fucked up.
in the little tiny
And
amount of time since I've read this, I started thinking about two characters.
uh-huh,
I started thinking about Chopper and Robin,
uh-huh,
or what these remind me of. This little snippet,
yeah.
which for one gets me interested in what Chopper may have to do in this next section.
Hmm.
But like we have, I think, sort of an inversion of Chopper in that you have this sweet, innocent little creature
Hmm.
who was bullied and demonized and pushed away because she was a freak, but her parental figure instead was Charlotte Linlin and not
It was
Hira Luke.
reinforcing
Reinforced
the
that
things
and
that the mean kids are saying.
pushed her to be the monster like Chopper
Right.
could have been, or be the devil child like Nico Robin could have been.
Because her grow out your bangs. I don't want to look at that weird, freaky third
naked
eye.
of yours.
And then
And
Sanji in his endless
kindness.
for the first time she's ever heard it, says that is a beautiful eye. And means it.
And then
God, he's so good.
he's so good. And I just I love it, man. I love it so much. And then everything starts to go to shit.
Everything goes to shit.
Katakuri's like, things are going to plan. And I like
I'm
that
gonna shoot Sanji.
I like that he's going to shoot Sanji, and as he's getting ready to shoot, he thinks to himself, "No good, he's gonna dodge," and then he does,
Yeah.
because he saw in the future that he was gonna dodge, but he was already shooting him. But Sanji's observation hockey is so good that he noticed the shot coming.
Yeah.
And then they hear the jelly bean sound was a gunshot. By the way, it was like bang.
Yeah.
The jelly bean shot
No,
sounded like a
that's
gunshot.
not it. Look at this. Look at that next page again. You see the priest has a gun. He was gonna shoot Sanji. That's
Yeah,
what
the priest.
happened.
Oh, is it? I thought it. Okay, I thought that the shot was from. I mean, you know, he was gonna shoot Sanji. I was thinking that the sound effect was from.
No,
The
you can
jelly
see
bean.
the smoke around the gun.
That's
the gun
true.
goes
I did
off
not catch
after the priest gets
I did not
shot
catch
by
the smoke from
jelly
the gun.
bean.
But they hear the shot from the gun, and they're like, "That was our signal." So we're gonna make it just in time. And so, as everything starts to go to shit, the Vinsmokes are on high alert. The Charlotte family are on high alert. Out of the wedding cake erupts like 20 Luffy's.
Yup.
And then the section ends.
And this is it. That's it. I cliffhangered him on Luffy jumping out of the cake.
Oh, what an awesome moment. Because everything is going to shit. There's still like
Everything is
40 chapters. Everything, like, Luffy's plan has failed. Charlotte's plan has failed. The Vinsmokes are alive. and they're probably gonna attack. The Charlotte family's gonna attack. Everybody's probably gonna think Monkey D. Luffy is attacking this wedding. What the hell is Sanji gonna do in this situation? What is Pudding gonna do in this situation? Where does how does Capone play off this? Like, is he still gonna try for the plan to take out Big Mom by doing the thing and getting her to scrape her knee? And
Who
I mean,
knows?
but the thing is, like, in my mind, that's all like a quick little thing. This is like an instantaneous scuffle. There's like 40 chapters left, and I guess that's the same thing that happened in Dressrosa was like 80 chapters of fighting Doflamingo. That's an
Yeah.
exaggeration for effect, but you know what I mean. So like maybe this whole conflict is the next 40 chapters, or the next like
Uh-huh.
30 or something, and then there's aftermath for the last like 10 or so, because we can't end
Yeah.
without Luffy having a party on the ship. So I'm just like, there's so many moving pieces that I'm so invested in this arc. This arc is
Oh yeah.
like, it's kind of everything that I like, sort of all wrapped
hmm
into one.
You get the high emotion, sadness,
Yeah, you get like
tragedy,
intense
comedy,
emotion, comedy, sadness. You've got
and
the
then also
the
like
moving
the
pieces,
scheming and
the
espionage
scheming
and like
espionage stuff. Like, so this actually, this arc kind of reminds me in a way of what I was hoping Water 7 was going to be initially.
oh yeah.
And I loved what Water 7 turned into, but I really liked when I thought Water 7 was going to be this like espionage murder mystery thing going on, and that's sort of
hmm
what Whole Cake Island has turned into, is
Yeah.
this like a bunch of different factions all coming to this one wedding to try and enact their plan to take somebody else out.
Yeah.
Um, and then like all of that comes to a head
And
in
then
this
Monkey D.
moment.
Luffy shows
And
up.
then Monkey D. Luffy bashes his head into the wall and fixes it all. Or not fixes it all, makes it a big mess.
Actually makes it all worse.
Makes it all worse for everybody involved except maybe himself. So,
Yeah.
let's see. Do I have more in my notes about theory talk that I wanted to do? I don't really think so.
I
Um,
think we did most of that on the way.
yeah, most of it happened on the way. I didn't have too much theory for this time because I really don't. I could not even begin to predict what's going to happen next. I feel like
No.
there's so many moving parts that are all now not moving in the directions they were moving right before this chapter happened. So
Yeah.
I have no clue where things are going next. Um, I'm so excited to find out though.
Yep. I'm so
Uh,
I'm I'm so excited for this
yeah,
for
this
the
has
last
been
half.
easily one of my favorite arcs, and we're not even done yet. I'm excited to see where it stacks up and how I enjoy the ending, and
Mhm.
really where this is going. Cause like, is Luffy gonna take out Big Mom? I don't
Who
know. That
knows?
seems like a pretty big deal. I don't know if he can handle that yet. But if he can't handle that yet, how's he gonna handle Kaido? Which I don't think is too far away necessarily within like the span of what arcs are left.
Mhm.
Um, and Kaido's supposed to be stronger than Big Mom, so like if we can't handle Big Mom, what's the plan? I don't know. But then again, we also like don't have our strongest with us. Like we're
Yep.
doing all this and we've got Chopper and Nami and Brook. And not that they're weak,
But they're
but they're
not.
not Zoro. They're not Frankie.
No,
They're
they're not.
not,
They're not Zoro.
like we at least we have Sanji, but they're not Zoro. They're not like one of our monsters.
Mhm.
Two of them used to be part of the Weakling trio,
Right.
and one of them's a skeleton. Like I'm just very excited. I'm so excited for more because I really really loved this section. The twists in this section were like no
Oh,
other.
oh
I
yeah.
think it has really been since Water 7 that there have been twists like this.
Uh-huh.
And I think is part of what I love so much about Water 7 and part of why I'm really loving Whole Cake is these unbelievable twists and turns that are happening. And the
Yeah.
way that each time one of them happens, it reshapes everything you've thought of so far and it all makes sense. Like there's not
Uh-huh.
been any twist where it's like, "Oh, well that doesn't make any sense." Like why would this doesn't make any sense retroactively. It's just so good. And Oda's doing such a great job of putting it all in motion. Uh,
Oh, I love this shit.
I do too. And if you loved this shit, you should like the video and leave a
You should
comment
like and subscribe and hit the bell icon and leave a comment.
and do all the things that we say at the end of usually these videos. Because if you made it this far, you probably liked it.
I feel like we rambled a little bit more in this
We
one, but
rambled a little bit more, but there was a lot to ramble about.
yeah, this is the longest section that we've done.
And
So
this is the longest section we've done, and maybe the least time I've had to sit on a section. I mean, I say maybe like this isn't an hour after I finished it. We started this. So I didn't have as much time to really like dig into strange details that I otherwise would have noticed. But I also will probably have a little more time after the end of Whole Cake than normal.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll have more time to dig into the arc holistically, which I think is a nice balance.
Hmm.
And as per usual, if you leave a comment that makes him cry, I'll put a heart on it. This is probably your easiest time to do it. You can
Yeah.
probably just type the word
I,
Sanji and then
I
you get a
I
heart. Like,
really, guys, I love Sanji is my favorite Straw Hat. If you talk about Sanji, I'll probably cry.
yeah, he'll probably. You just have to type the word Sanji and he'll probably cry. Um, and really, that's really what this is all about. So,
That's all this is about. That's all y'all want, right?
I mean, hey, what do you think I've been doing this for?
All right. Well, thank you all
Thank
so
you all
much
for
for
watching
watching,
once again. Cheers.
and cheers.